Michelle.
Jumper, yeah.
All right, let's I'll call this order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Ansorgi.
Here.
Commissioner Rushton.
Present.
Chairman Bonick.
Here.
Commissioner Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sudis-Little.
Here.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
Here.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. That brings us to public comment. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the action items. We have a set agenda, so the first thing will be the LEC roof update.
Yeah, well, let me start an update about Scott Bradley, one of our maintenance people. Some of you may know, some of you may not. Yesterday around 2 o'clock, Scott was working in Miles Kimberly Park in the woods where the Frisbee golf is. There were some dead trees down, so he was moving a tractor. And he doesn't know how it happened as he blacked out. He was lifting a tree, and it appears that it flipped over, hit him. He became unconscious. He did fortunately wake up, and he was able to back the tractor out and call 911. But I went to the hospital and saw him. Cedar Fire and Rescue came right away, transported him. He has a broken wrist. He was pretty black and blue in the face and the side of this, but he was released this morning. All the tests came back negative for everything else. So we're grateful that he was not hurt seriously. But last night when I was talking to him, he honestly did not know what happened. He remembers picking the tree up, and next thing he knows, he wakes up and he's pinned, and he's in great pain. So fortunately, he had his phone where you get to it, but it shows you how critical the 911 equipment, because they were only able to find him because of the pinning from his phone, because he was back in the woods.
GPS.
And he did not know where he was. You know, I guess he was probably in a state of shock, because they asked him where he was and he didn't know.
Oh my God.
But it just shows you how great the technology is. And how fortunate he was that he had his phone with him.
Right.
But he is home, and I'm not how long he'll be off of work, but his wrist is broken. And he was pretty black and blue when I
Is
saw
it his
him.
dominant wrist?
Pardon me?
Is it his dominant wrist? Is he right-handed?
Yeah, he's right-handed.
I think
Oh, boy.
I assume he is, so we don't know how long he'll, but the good news is, he's okay, it wasn't a major injury.
No
but-
close head injury.
No, they did a series of tests. So I was there last night. He was on some medication. He said it was quite a bit of pain, even with the medication. But the doctors were very optimistic there was no long-term significant damage other than the wrist. He'll be sore for a while, but outside of that, it could have been much, much worse.
Yeah.
So, anything
Good
else
that he
on
could
Scott?
use his phone.
No, I think that covers it.
All right, so.
Yeah, really, it's good that he could use his phone.
Yeah, and he
Because
was
if
able to
he's
back the, because he was
right-handed, you know,
pinned.
And he was
Yeah.
at the highest point at the park where he could get his signal out. He wasn't down in one of the valleys, so he was at the
Yeah.
highest point of the park where he was able to get his signal out.
So what? Very fortunate. What is our policy on somebody working off-site like that? Would somebody have known at 5 o'clock, hey, Scott's not back? Or, I mean,
Realistically, probably not. I
that,
mean, we have 3 maintenance people
we
everywhere,
might need
so.
to think about something like that.
Calling in at 5,
Mhm.
that's not a bad idea.
I mean,
Well, actually, I'm just thinking out loud here, we actually could turn on that service where we trace their phones, so we know where they are exactly at
Find my
any
phone.
time.
yeah, something.
So we could check, you know, why is he still in park at this, yeah. that's-
Right.
Yeah, that's a good, we need to think about that, because, I mean, fortunately, it could have been, well, last spring with Jerry Coleman.
Yep.
I mean, that could have had dire consequences.
Could have been anywhere else.
Yeah, Jerry could have been, for the grace of God, he was here, which most time he could have been anywhere.
Yeah.
But the good news is, Scott should make a full recovery, so it's, just want to let you all know about that.
Thank you.
So, yeah, yeah. And then, this is not part of our 2020 budget, but you have a memo from Century A&E, and I asked Dwayne to come and explain these pictures. the company's doing a great job with the roofing. Two things we found out. One, they cut, is it a cooler line?
It was, yes, to the condensing units. and
Condensing unit,
refrigerator.
which forced us to rent some portable units. They're covering the cost of that. They were very upfront. As soon as it happened, they called us. Jerry went out, got some portable units. I talked to Lutz Roofing. He said, as soon as we get the bill, let them know they'll cover the cost. They were very apologetic. The second issue, which you have the memo, really is not their fault. And I'll give you a brief summary, then Dwayne can explain the pictures. They found out while they were working out there, the flashing was not done when the roof was built. It's on the blueprints, so they obviously built, the specs came out based on what's on the blueprints. And so when Lutz came to us and saying, hey, there's no flashing here, we said, why not? And they said, well, it's a good question. It's on the blueprints, on the specs. I had Century A&E, our consultant, look. He goes, yeah, this is not a Lutz issue because this was not part of the bid project, because we assume, based on the blueprints, that the flashing was there. So, Dwayne, want to just explain?
Yeah, these are some of the sections that when they tore up the roof that they found, there's gaps in the concrete that never got filled. If you go to the next slide, you can actually see the one next one, please. That is actually a big enough gap in the roof where you can actually look into the laundry room of the jail. That's actually looking down into the laundry room.
Amazing.
So they've
Totally.
encountered some problems up there, especially with the it being level. And with the new units that were put on the roof a couple of years ago, they're actually sitting on steel plates that balanced or made them level. So they've gone around and sealed up all those units. They've taken care of the issues, these gaps, and have done a really excellent job of buttoning up the roof. The additional cost that they're asking for is the wall up on top, the highest point of the roof, where the 80-foot section of wall is. They have to taper it so everything goes to the roof drains. So they've had to put additional insulation up there to make that work. So now they need 8 inches of flashing to make it to code. So they had to cut part of the wall, which is just deco foam that would look like fake concrete. So they cut along the entire wall to bring up the 8 inches to make everything to code. So they didn't anticipate that when they came out. Obviously, there was a bunch of snow on the roof, and it wasn't on the prints. So this is some of the stuff that they're encountering, and they're doing an excellent job of making it right.
There's some more
that's
pictures
the
here.
additional cost. So these are some of the issues that when they pulled up the old roof that they ran into that they didn't anticipate.
So I did have our consultant come and look at it. He agreed this is not a Lutz issue. It was not a bit, and he was shocked that whoever installed the roof, I don't know who did it, would do this type of work. And he did confirm that the price we got, because I'm not a roof expert, for the two things, the $2,635 and the $2,480, so it's over $5,000. Steve, our consultant, said that's an excellent price. They're basically doing it at their cost. So we don't have any choice, I think, but to have the work done. But I just wanted to let you know about it.
Dwayne, when you're talking about raising the amount of insulation, is there anything, is that going to deform over time so that it?
It
Okay.
will not. No, what they're doing is during that wall area, there's several roof drains over there. So before, water would puddle up in lower areas because it didn't all taper towards those roof drains. And I think that's where we ran into some problems with the roof. So they are making everything taper to the drains so the roof stays fairly dry when we do get rain and the water does not puddle up on top of the roof.
Okay.
So it will not settle. They put down the foam insulation, or an insulation, then they put down a protective layer on that. Then they put down, it's a gypsum board, which is kind of a fire retardant.
Okay.
Then there's another protective membrane on top of that. So they're actually doing 4 layers of
So it
protection.
should not deform, no.
Talking with the Gary O'Connell and some of the other individuals, this roof will probably be one of the best roofs in Leelanau County. And as far as the heating and cooling of the roof, it's going to be more than adequate and up to code and efficient.
So I talked to Jen and Michelle about the cost, and help me out, Jen, I believe when you did the transfer to capital outlay, there's enough funds to cover it.
That's correct.
Yeah,
With
so we don't have to transfer any additional money.
With
And
last
we-
Tuesday's.
Pardon me?
With last Tuesday's budget amendments and
Yeah.
transfers that we did here at the regular session.
No. So we have any choice, I'm gonna tell them today to authorize it. It's an emergency situation, they have to know this week. They actually are close to wrapping up the project, but like I said, our consultant confirmed that this was not a roofing issue. So I just want you to know about it.
Well, and to answer Commissioner Sutis Little's question, it actually is a styrofoam that they'll put like even under concrete, so it doesn't really crush.
So it has a
So,
hard-
yeah, it's hard, solid, and so, I mean, you could probably drive on it and it wouldn't, crush down.
Good. Thank you.
All right, so,
Unbelievable.
I just thought you should be aware of it.
all right, so that'll be on our agenda?
No, it
Or
won't.
you're just going
I'm
ahead?
doing it, I'm telling you, no, it's, and under budget rules, in an emergency situation, I have the authority, and I don't think we have a choice, I think you all agree. Just want to let you know.
Okay.
And they will either, the final bill, probably not much, because I think what they're gonna do is give us credit for the Coon units that we had to rent, and there'll be a credit there versus this, and we'll make it work out, but I do appreciate the fact that they were very upfront with those units, and they took full responsibility to keep us harmless, and overall, they're doing a good job. Michelle was texting me, I think, Sunday, because she's here on weekends, she says, do you know the crews here working all weekend? I said, yes, they are. Yeah.
They were up here.
Just like Michelle.
I was here Sunday afternoon, they were here working, Michelle was here Saturday, they were here working.
Wow.
And I haven't forwarded to you, but they do those daily updates with photos.
Mhm.
That's pretty impressive, so, they are actually ahead of
Just like
schedule.
you, pretty
They don't want to commit, but they may be done within a week, the whole project, which is way ahead of schedule. The weather has been very cooperative for them.
That's good.
Okay, I'm going to move number 6 up to 1A so that Ron can come while he's here, if you want to.
Yeah, this really is not a budget request or anything. We thought we'd give you an update on where we are and where we hope to be in the future. We all know that Ron will win the lotto at some point and want to depart from us. And so how do we go forward? And I can talk about that a little bit, but I just want to give you an update. We've been in this partnership with Safety Net now for 3 months.
3 months, yeah.
And we had our first quarterly review with their representative this week. And both Ron and I, privately, before we started, thought we were actually ahead of schedule where we thought they'd be, and they are actually exceeding our expectations. One of the things I was really impressed with is, Ron and I were talking even last year about we need someone to come and do an internal audit of all our issues, where we are, and kind of a blueprint of how we go forward. And they did that, and Ron, you want to just talk about that?
Yeah, it's they call it a technology health assessment. It's basically a checklist that they go through. They had one of their engineers come here, go through our systems, fill out this questionnaire, and basically what it does is shows you areas where you need to get things done. A lot of it, we just got it yesterday. Was it yesterday or day before?
Day before.
Day before. So I haven't had a chance to review it yet, but there's areas that I'm going to look at. Some of the things they came up with are things that we have to do because we have outside vendors supporting our systems. So once I get through this, and then I'm going to go back and talk to them and explain to them where some of these things may be a deficiency, which really aren't a deficiency because of specific reasons. A lot of this also is things that they're going to be doing. Things like documentation. They're saying that it's listed right out in who's responsible for fixing these things. A lot of them are them, some of them are us, so it's really, I think it's a great,
If you like a copy,
great
give it
tool.
to you. But I was impressed, being a non-tech person, not only did they list, how many pages is that report?
49.
49 pages. Every one of their points, they have also listed in terms of priorities. And they have a star system, green, I think blue,
Yellow,
yellow.
green, yellow, red, yeah.
So in terms of what are their priorities? So we have a game plan now, and what they're going to do and what we have to do.
Mhm.
So this is a long-term plan. This is not a 3-month plan. This is a long-term plan. Also, what they did, is they gave us a grade at the beginning, and the percentage-wise of where we're at. Most companies, when they come in, they say are anywhere between 40 and 60% compliance, that's their average. We're at
73.
73. And they're giving us a B to B minus, which they said for a company, for them just coming in, they were.
Yeah,
quite
that's
good.
without any explanation on things that are on here, you know, so.
Yeah.
I think really after the first cut through, there's quite a few things on here that, you know, they're that way for a reason, you know, so.
And a lot of things in there, the things that they are gonna do. They just, this is the first base report. So their staff will use this as their model too, because obviously our scores have to go up every report. So I thought it was a great tool.
And it'll be done quarterly, you know, quarterly they'll update it and see, here's the things that have been done, and give us a new report, so.
Commissioner Ansel.
Do we have any red
We have some
issues
reds.
that we have to address immediately?
No, not really. There are some reds, but they're not things that have to be addressed immediately. I think the biggest one was our Windows 7, which is end of life in January. So this next meeting here, I'm going to be coming to you looking for 22 new computers and about 30 next year. So we've got to get rid of our Windows 7 because it's end of life in February. Now, that's probably the biggest one, the biggest red flag, so.
Commissioner West.
Do they address hardware needs, like in the community room and?
No, just network, just not presentation types, just critical, network critical things.
Somewhere on the list, I think we ought to look at our public Wi-Fi. When we have meetings downstairs, that's an issue for people that are used to using their laptops and.
Well, I mean, because we actually talked about that, not knowing you were bringing it up. One of the things with technology is they're gonna, help me out here, Ron, if I misspeak. They're gonna be able to go to every one of our workstations and see who's using how much bandwidth and who's trimming, not just who's using it, but for what purpose. Because Ron has filtered back the public Wi-Fi on purpose, to give us more space. But with this, I think we'll be able to see who's streaming music, who's watching videos on Netflix. If we have that in place, Ron can open the window more for the public Wi-Fi. So that
Yeah,
may be
it's
a
throttled
process.
back right now because of, you know, like I said, everybody that has their phone with them are, you know, could be streaming music or watching videos or whatever, and, you know, and it impacts our day-to-day services. Another thing that they came up with was, you know, they'd like to see us have an additional internet provider. Well, right now, we only have one available, Charter. Now AT&T has brought up fiber, so they're a player now, and we could get additional service from them. And Grand Traverse Band is, again, going to be dragging fiber. They're in the permit process, so, you know, we may be able to get internet service from them as well. So, you know, so those are the things that this will help us with, if you will.
So a second provider as redundancy?
Yes,
Okay.
as redundancy, correct.
All right.
Yeah, failover redundancy.
Mhm.
Yep.
How is the lean line? I think we have the one here from Lansing, don't we have to get one back to Lansing, is that?
We have the one to Lansing up and running. We need to get one now to Core Technologies.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then once that's in place, then they put their service on our server. The server's installed and running, so we just have to get the VPN connection to Core Technologies. It is to the state already, so.
So we are hooked up to the state, we just can't get back to core then?
To Core, which is, yeah, for the lean services, so.
So
yep.
Chet's turning on TV shows.
I'm
Oh,
turning it
you're
off.
turning off your TV shows.
I want you to see the
Is
photos
there a
from the room.
timeline on when that might happen, or is that really up to core?
No, it's really up to us, okay?
Oh.
And I've got to get to, Safety Net is going to be doing that as well. One of the things that they did is the VPN to the state, and I really kind of didn't expect them to do that. I thought that would become a project of theirs,
Yeah.
but like I said, that's where they've actually done more, I think, than we really had planned on them doing. So, and they're going to also do the one, set up the VPN to Core. So we just yesterday or the day before got the specs from Core as to what the parameters are for that VPN. So
So
I would
whenever-
expect maybe next week they'll be starting to install their software.
Whenever Ron goes on vacation, we always hold our breath, hoping there's no issues, but Ron's actually leaving in a couple weeks now, right?
Well, October.
Why don't you tell the plan?
October.
Place.
Yeah, well, so I've also notified them of when I'll be on vacation. Internally, people will, if they have issues, they'll get a hold of Laurel. And then Laurel will kind of be the central point so they don't get calls from everybody. If she feels that it's something that needs to be addressed right away, then she'll call Safety Net or email them at support, and then they'll address it. We do have all the workstations up and running as far as their remote access to them and the new virus software, so that's all in place. So they can basically attach to any workstation here from their office and do remote support. So that part of the onboarding process is complete.
So are you able to get to them remotely?
Yes, it's helped me a lot. I mean,
Yeah, I would
people
say.
call me and I just, right now, go on my computer and, okay, I take control
I
of
was
their
thinking, yeah,
workstation.
that's a great idea.
Yeah, and it can be done from anywhere. I mean, even if I'm in the UP or wherever, if I have service, I could still take control of workstations here. So, but I don't want to. I'd like to be on vacation.
So then, what happens when Ron wins that lotto? We've had discussions with Safety Net. And these are all preliminary discussions. I've had discussions with Grand Traverse County about a partnership. But in my mind, I like to do, and I use the example what I did when I was running in Charlevoix. We had a one-person staff person, Scott May, who for some reason looks like Ron. I've had 3 technology directors in my life. All of them have a beard and, let's say, lack of, I don't know why, but.
I know why.
Every,
Because we pull our hair out,
the
we don't
3
have time to
places I
shave.
worked with technology director, all of them look kind of exactly the same. So I don't know if there's a.
They're not
link
this
there
handsome now, right?
Or not. But what happened is,
Requirement.
when Scott retired, we entered a program with the Intermediate School District, where they provided technology service. They actually assigned a full-time staff person to the office. So this person was there every single day. So the employees didn't know the difference. Only thing is his paycheck came from the Intermediate School District. And the nice thing was, if he didn't have the skills or the background, he had a team behind him that could address the issue. So we had one person assigned, but if that person cannot solve the issue or is beyond his ability, he had a team behind him. Our costs to us were the same. The problem got fixed. It just mattered who fixed it. And so Grand Traverse County right now has 8 employees with different skills. We've had casual discussion with them in the future about potentially partnering with them. But I don't think we're going to be able to just put it ad in the paper and hire one person to replace Ron. That's, maybe we worked 10 years ago. That does not work now. I did some checking. Several counties have done this with partnerships. It's not a unique concept. Hospitals are going that way. Colleges, universities, school districts are going that way. Technology is such a critical component now, and it changes constantly. And you may have great skills in one area, but not know networking. You may be a network expert, but don't know other parts of it. So I think at some point, we're going to have to look at that option. And I think we can have a plan in place. I think it's critical we have one person here that everyone knows and can do the day-to-day things. I don't want to come up with a plan where we have a problem, we have to wait until someone comes from Traverse City. But I kind of see where that person is here, working with us, responsible. But it's the company's responsibility to resolve the problem or come up with the long-term plans. And it could be the person assigned here, or it could be one of his staff people, one of his coworkers.
Mr. Answer.
We should talk to Safety Net. They may have
I have.
something in that, along those
Yeah,
lines as well.
we've done that already.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anything else, Ron?
No, that's about it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
If any of you are interested in the report, just let me know. For a non-tech person, I thought it was very interesting. It's kind of what I was hoping we could get, but it was so nice because it was all color-coded, so I could look at it. And then we actually went through it, and almost all, like Rob mentioned, all those things that are red is actually they're going to take care of it.
It would be nice for all of us to have a copy
Well,
of
I
that.
can email out. I
Yeah,
think
so
I have
that
an
we
email
can
copy.
refer to it in the future if we need to, because obviously, at some point, there's going to be change in that department.
They were going to email it to me, I don't know if we have it or not, but I will get it out to all of you. If you want to look at it, great, if you don't, but
Yeah.
it was quite impressive, I thought.
Well, then that'll bring us to Park and Rec. Yes.
Can we shift, since Dodie is here?
Sure,
rather than keep her
sure,
waiting?
that's a good
So I
idea.
just
Go to Register of
suggest we
Deeds
do.
then?
No, it's
No,
health
no,
department.
I'm sorry.
It's Health Department.
Oh, okay, yes. Guess I'm sorry. So which number is that? Oh, number 3.
Number 3.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Normally, I like to be behind the scenes and support the program people, but thank you for having us here. The Board of Health, back in our May meeting, requested a 5% appropriation increase from both Benzie and Leelanau counties. And according to our interlocal government agreement, that increase is also based on population. So for Leelanau County, we requested the 5%. It would make it, based on population, actually 4.77%, or an additional $15,237 that we are requesting in appropriations. And one of the main reasons and we decided to go with 5% is because we're have a defined benefit liability like most government agencies. We're fortunate enough, it's not huge, but we also realize that we need to address the situation because we have 5 people, 3 retarees and 2 current employees on that defined benefit. So our liability is going to go up as more of us long-term employees retire. So that's one reason, and the other reason we requested additional funding was to start digitizing our environmental health records. We are spending an enormous amount of staff time looking up records, and we really like the concept that the Leelanau County Equalization Department has, that you can go online and enter our address, tax number, or owner's name, and find that information out. So we realize the need of technology and would really like to move forward in that direction. We appreciate the support from Leelanau County. Both Leelanau and Benzie have been very supportive of the health department and administration and staff. Truly appreciate that.
Commissioner West.
When we were talking septic, we heard that there were about 12,000 septic systems that we don't have records on. Does this budget request relate to that at all? Will the process of the digitization, will that begin to increase our ability to look at records?
Right, it will take what paper records we have on file. Now, if we don't have any information on those systems in-house on the file, then we wouldn't have that. It doesn't take into consideration, it takes into consideration everything we have on a paper chart.
So it really won't address that
It will not, no.
Thank you.
Commissioner Redden.
Well, but we could get the tax numbers and so on from the equalization department here, and then any tax numbers could be extrapolated, so we would know the parcels that we're missing. So we would have, I'm assuming.
I don't know.
That we would, then I think that would give us the knowledge of what parcels we're missing, and then we could start there with looking to see, you know.
Eric Johnston, our environmental health director, has been the spearhead of this project, and he's been working with prospective vendors on what the specs are. He just tells me how much it's going to cost, and I have to try and figure out funding for it. So maybe, I don't know.
Commissioner Rushton, do you have a question?
Well, I was just wondering, once we determine those homeowners that do not have any records at the health department, what's the next step for the health department to ensure that those septic systems are operational?
So we just don't go out and visit. If we don't have, if we have a parcel with no records on it, we would not go out and visit it unless there was a complaint or unless they came in to replace their system. You don't have a point of sale or a transfer ordinance in the county, so we just would not be going out there to
Is it possible the homeowner may have records?
Boy, it's been my past experience when I sit up there that it's the homeowners usually calling us for information. And we would tell them, you know, there's just nothing on the file.
Commissioner Law.
To answer one of Deborah's questions is, sometimes that is the situation. They do know what they have, but it's pre-72, so the health department does not have a record of it. But they know.
If the homeowner, yeah, the
The
homeowner may.
homeowners quite often do know. But I wanted to ask, I did not take it that we don't have records on 12,000 homes. So I wanted to double check on that and get where that came. Do you remember who said that?
I think it was Eric, but I may be wrong.
Yeah,
so
because that would be like half of our homes.
That's an extremely large number.
Yeah, that's half our
I would
homes,
be
and I
surprised
don't
if it
think
was that
that's the
number.
case. We've got so many new homes, post 72 homes in our county that I would just, and a lot of pre-72 homes I know have replaced systems, you know, such as
It would,
3 of my
and I
homes
may be
are all
wrong, it would be an interesting
Yeah,
question to.
yeah. But I applaud you for wanting to begin that process, because I think that is a very important step for us, so that we do have those numbers. Do you know how long that process will take? Does he have an idea? How many years long that project is?
I don't think it's measured in years, I think it's measured in months.
Great.
So,
That's a better answer than I was looking for. So that's super.
I mean, what I have heard is some companies literally take our files and then they'll take them off-site, scan them, and bring them back on-site. So, I mean, whole drawers full of files.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Commissioner Wessel.
No, I will, maybe, could you check on that number?
I'm sorry, I was talking to someone on the phone. There.
Could you find out for us what number Eric reported on the number of we've got 16,000, I understand, septic systems. And that was my understanding, we had records on only 4,000.
Okay.
I may be wrong.
All right, we'll check.
That's my recollection.
Eric
We have
Johnson.
4,500, had since 1972, you know. But he didn't say how many we don't have, but he did say there were around 16,000. But I didn't know if that was households or parcels, you know.
All right, well,
But anyway.
I'll
yeah.
give him a call.
But that wasn't yours, you know. So Commissioner Ansari, you have something?
I want to make sure that I understood you clearly. The additional 5% is split between the counties based on population.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. What we do is we ask each county for 5%, and then that gives us a total increase. That total amount is then divided or times by the county populations. There's a formula, so that percentage then, that total amount is times by that percentage of each county.
So like when Benzie County has this point of sale that you guys have to, police,
Mm-hmm.
they are giving you additional revenue to cover that?
They are not, the county itself is not, we get the additional revenue through permit fees. The point of sales have permit fees, and that is what's,
And it's covering all the costs.
I won't say that.
And that's what I'm leading up to here,
Right.
is if we each have some differences in the services that we are paying for.
Right. Well,
How are we subsidizing Benzie, or is Benzie subsidizing us?
No, I think that's where the population breakdown comes into play, is because Leelanau County has a larger population. So while Benzie County has a point of sale and that results in more permits, Leelanau County has a larger population base where we do a lot more vacant land inspections, we do a lot more septic permits. So it kind of washes out in that regard, because Leelanau County has 21,657 based on the 2017 estimates from Department of Community Health, where Benzie County has 17,000. So when you take the overall requested increase and you apply the population, Leelanau County's percentage increase over the prior year is less than 5%. It's actually 4.77, where Benzie County's is 5.32.
You know, what I'm getting at here is if we're splitting the total costs of the health departments by population, you know, yes, we should be paying more. But if there are additional services being provided to one county, that should be subtracted out before we do it on a percentage basis. You know, you see what I'm getting at?
Right, right. The fathers that created the health department obviously set up the funding formula the way they did
And,
back
you know,
in '96. So
if the
I'm not
cost of the
sure.
point of sale was covering the true costs as experienced by the health department, that would be fine. But if it's not, then one county is subsidizing another county's services that are only available in that other county. That's my observation.
Nobody's arguing.
No, actually, that's a point that I have made several times in the past. We've always wanted to make sure that we are not subsidizing Benzie. Benzie did not want to be subsidizing us. So it's been relatively good overall all these years. But where Benzie couldn't come up and pay, I think it was like 3% a few years ago, they had to tack those fees on. So their residents are paying way more in fees than we are here because we have continued to give that it's usually 3% raise a
Usually
year.
3.
Yes.
Yep.
So, but I will say this, if there is some residual, and I'm sure there is because it's administrative always costs a lot of money, on the septic, the point of sale they have there, we may be subsidizing that a little bit. I don't know. But I do know that Benzie helped subsidize our health department building here in Benzie for a few years. When we couldn't sell it, we couldn't.
That is
So-
correct. I have the same conversations at Benzie County regarding the Leelanau Resource Center. So I try to get away
a
from the
broken
concept
record.
of Benzie County, Leelanau County. We are a Benzie Leelanau District Health Department. We are a joint partnership with an agreement.
So, but I would say it's done very well. In my estimation, they've done very well.
It's
So-
not grossly,
I
It's
guess
not
that's what I'm
grossly,
asking, you know,
yeah,
from
right.
you guys that are more familiar with the health department being on the board. Your opinion is it is a fair split right now, not necessarily perfect, but fair.
Fair.
Well, the way Jody said it, it's kind of a wash, you know, there's a little bit of give and take on both sides, so,
Okay, so you feel it's fair?
yeah.
Okay, that's all I want to know.
I do, yeah. So my question was, then, has Benzie approved 5% yet?
they have not. They have a budget committee meeting tomorrow, a special board meeting, in which I'm going to attend as well, but they have not, and it's looking more and more like the 3% versus 5. And the 3% is what we normally ask. It was the additional 2% that would go to these special projects.
Okay. And my final question then is a question more for accounting. Could we, rather than do a 5% increase and have it look like that bump in the road when we look at future health department budgets, could we do that 2% under a one-time special projects line item or something, so we've got that kind of a paper trail rather than just do a 5% to the health department? Does that make sense?
Yep, that would be up to you.
We
So you could allocate 3%.
do the 3%
And then you could
allocation
do-
for
Like you have
services.
other requests sometimes for special projects or
Yep.
special costs. If you wish to,
Okay.
you could allocate X dollars for this project.
Digitizing.
Yeah.
Digitizing.
Would it be a full, just straight 2%? You said the whole 2% you expect to go for the special project if approved?
Between the MERS and the digitization process, but as we get quotes, you know,
Okay.
we're gonna have to look for other funding sources
So
too
you-
for that digitizing.
Okay, you are.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Could you come back with a specific amount?
Yes,
Yeah,
Eric.
I'm sure
that's
the
kind
board
of what's
wants to pay
wondering.
extra for MERS.
Either do 2%.
Yeah.
Well, or do we want to do that too?
Well-
Because, but that's probably that's
Probably should
years.
break that out.
Right? Okay, break it out then.
Yeah.
Okay, that would be my recommendation to us, is to do it that way.
How much time would you need to come back with the revised proposal? Not about the 3%, it's for the special.
Oh, the
project.
special funding? Eric is working on getting estimates. A lot of the vendors are downstate. There's only one or two up here that he's contacted. So I think he wants presented at our September Board of Health meeting, so probably October.
Well, but we have to approve our budget by 1st of October, so we'll need it before that.
So he could give us the estimates that he's already received, so we could get a ballpark idea of what he's.
For a special
Our
funding
next meeting
project.
is September 10th. If you could
Okay.
give us an estimate by September 10th.
Okay.
We could do up to a certain amount and see what comes in.
Okay. Easily.
Go ahead.
So by doing that, allocating these funds for a specific purpose, does that restrict the use of their funds when they get it for that purpose?
Currently, right now, Jody invoices us. So she invoices us quarterly, so for the amount that was approved. So let's say for the 2019 budget, you approved 319. She sends us a quarterly installment invoice that we then pay out. So if you were to drop this back to the base 3%, she gives you that number and you plug that in, then the remainder, if you're looking for, I would point off and what would be a contribution to another agency, I'd make it an 001, and it would be amount that she would then, once she got her board approval, and if she had to come back to you possibly to let you know, or if the health department reported to you what the final estimates were in 2020, then you could approve from this line item for those to be paid. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And I like that. Setup, because then we're allocating those dollars specifically for a purpose or a need that the health department is targeting. So I like that setup.
Commissioners.
I like it too, but I certainly don't want us to believe that solves the issue about all of those that we don't know about. This just helps us move into the 21st century, 20 years too late. But at least we'll be there. But it doesn't solve our problem.
But we can then cross this.
Yes.
It will get us there.
Mhm.
Yes, it will get us there.
That's all.
Well, I was, okay, this is one thing I wondered about. Now, we have, that school now owns that building, right?
Correct.
And you pay them rent for that?
We do. We pay them rent, and then we pay 50% of costs, maintenance costs.
Okay. And we have room in this building for the health department?
You do.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that's, I'm wondering, is there ever any talk about on the boards or that about moving so that we consolidate all of the county's types of systems?
We have a 5-year lease agreement with Leelanau Montessori, and we are starting year 2 of that agreement. Definitely, we will be looking at our space needs, what their needs are, what their plans are. Definitely by next year, because that's year 3, and then we'll have to go from there. But we have not had any preliminary talk about moving out of that building, at least for 5 years.
Well, if you hire 4 more or 5 more people, if this millage goes through, will you have room in that building for them?
I don't know the details of what the plan is regarding.
Well, that's what it was, that's the budget I saw, looked at least 4 people being hired with this millage and working out of the health department, which it's amazing to me, you don't know anything about that budget, and yet we passed it. So that's why I'm asking you about it, is that, would there be room to put 4 more offices in that building?
No. I mean,
So that was never considered?
well, I don't know if they would be working remotely, which is always a possibility. It depends on what their job is. We have a lot of staff that can work remotely, so maybe that was the plan for those additional staff people.
I see.
We do have a couple conference rooms in there that are used. We do have one vacant office that's like a floater.
And that would probably have to be used by all 4 when they come in or something?
Probably the old Beta office, if you've ever been in our building.
I have,
That
yeah.
front office.
I've been in the conferences and all of those.
Yeah.
So there really wasn't any plan that you know of that was provided for this at all?
I don't know. In regards to that budget, it's a very preliminary budget. I just don't know what the thought process is.
And did you have any information at all about that budget
I gave Michelle some budget numbers of what it would cost for staffing and computers, technology. There's a bunch of stuff that goes with it, but the details of it, very rough.
When Dodie is referring to the details of it, she's talking about where those people would be located. And that, I think, is part of the discussion that would be had if the millage passes and the health department puts together a more finite program. But, I know that, as Dodie is saying, she worked to provide the base numbers that you saw in the final budget, and there were some before that, but that was the final number. But those people may be working mostly remotely because of the area they would be serving. So space may or may not be a problem. It might be very possible that they can utilize one office area.
I was thinking it might help out to move here.
Well, I think that is something you'll have to talk about with the health department, except I know that one reason they probably like where they are is central location to clients, but there are probably a lot of reasons why they would maybe want to move too, so.
It's just,
Depends on how much room you have here. I don't know.
Commissioner Redmond.
How many square feet are we occupying now at the Binsfeld Center?
It's roughly just over 6,000, I believe. Share care over in the, the building was split between the schools. We always said the school side and the health department side. Well, the school remodeled portion of the side that the health department was in, so we decreased a little bit there, but gained where some other offices were. Right now, share care is still in there, and a Leelanau office of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, and then we occupy the rest on that side. So that's about the square footage we have.
Okay. Any other questions for us? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Dodie.
Thanks a bunch.
So now we're to Park and Rec, I believe.
Well, Scott Bradley was scheduled to be here to talk about the part-time position. Obviously, that's not going to occur. But as you remember, 2 years ago, we set up it's a quarter-time position, which is 450 hours per year, which is actually just for the summer months. So when we had that position, and David Worm was here, he actually worked in the senior services and technology for most of the year. In the summertime, was on the parks cutting grass. Scott and I actually talked a couple of days ago about this before the accident, and obviously Scott was very helpful because if Dave was cutting grass, Scott could work on other projects. Moving trees, yeah, unfortunately, yes, and other stuff. But obviously, David has not been here, so he did that through first part of August, but we have not had anyone since. And would we be able to find someone at a quarter time with no benefits? I don't know. It just happened that it kind of fell in place with those part-time positions with David Worm. But I think Parks and Recs had a discussion on this, and we have two members of Parks and Recs here, so I'm not sure what your thoughts were on that. This idea came from Parks and Recs originally.
We had a meeting last week where one of our commissioners was partying on South Manitou, the rest of us stayed back.
Two commissioners were partying. Three commissioners were partying at South Manitou.
And unanimously, the committee said that Scott needs some help for lawn mowing. They were open to part-time contracted work, going out for bids, I think, for mowing if they could, but he can't do the job without some way of providing some support for lawn mowing.
And as you remember, we did bid it out twice in the last 4 years, and people like to bid on commercial jobs like here. They don't have the equipment or the financial, the model does not work in parks like that. So both times we bid it out, the whole bid process, even informal trying to get quotes, we were not successful getting quotes.
The other thing we talked about is maybe arranging with students from NMC or Michigan State
Student internship?
through an internship kind of a program.
I like that.
Well, I believe, Jen, you did put it in, it is in the budget, isn't it?
Yes.
450 hours with no benefits?
In
Where
the,
are we?
in the staffing levels,
We also thought if someone was retired, it'd be a great summer job.
yeah.
We never
I
did
put it-
post it as a David situation.
I put it in, it's under, the only information that you'll find regarding it, other than in the department totals, is under your staffing levels. And that goes by, department, so it's gonna be, the 101, 850, 756, so it's gonna be farther towards the middle to the end of the staffing levels. And, I went back to a level 3 starting position at $15.10. When I went to figure this, I had been texting back and forth with Chet regarding the hours. So basically, since when he and I were talking, I just kind of took the dates of June, July, and August, which is 30, 31, 31, and came up with a relevant of about 66 days, work days. If that person, I'm thinking, was more going to be college student orientated versus if someone in the past has worked May 1st to October. So the amount that came out to was $8,000 plus FICA.
The plan was Scott was going to come here with a list of projects he was able to do because he wasn't cutting grass at the parks. And he had a list park by park, but obviously with his situation yesterday, and I don't have that list from him, so I can't tell you what he did do. Maybe the park commission knows more what he's been doing, but he said it did help him truly because obviously you're not cutting grass all the time. And that's basically what David did, to just cut grass and then did a little bit of helping with Scott on some big projects. On that, David cut the grass pretty much
Well,
every day.
I mean, yeah, you've got 3 parks,
Yeah.
and you've got a lot,
Yeah.
especially Miles Kimberly.
So,
I think it's,
so to back, man,
go ahead.
to back up, Jen, I just got to my staffing level. So you've got, number of positions, you have 1 that's a .5. Yep. So just to help me understand how you're, so is that
Scott.
Is that Scott? Because
Yes.
it's half maintenance, half, okay.
Yep, it's a full-time equivalent and it's 50% of the year.
Okay, and it's CR only, so we don't get
Yes.
Dwayne or
No.
any, okay.
They're
The
on his
other
campus.
.25 is this other intern or whatever, okay. All right, I got you. What page are you on?
It's,
From the staffing level?
it's page.
We don't page number them, so it's at the bottom of the worksheet. If you start your staffing levels and at the bottom, it's gonna say 850, 756. I mean, right before recycling, which is Fund 230.
So there is no one for administration for Park and Rec?
Admin, I'm sorry?
Yeah, administration of the Park and Rec of the parks. There's no administration at all. There's just a worker and a quarter, half a
Yes.
worker and a quarter.
Yes.
And who does the minutes then for that?
Laurel, we try to get, we had our temporary, but that didn't work out, so most of the time Laurel has to do it.
So that's another thing that's, so does that come out of the Park and Rec budget?
No,
Out of
it's-
administration?
We don't charge Park and Rec fund number.
Parks and Rec's actual budget is gonna be
Yeah, and
under
that's where, when I was on Park and
resource,
Rec, it got to be a problem of, we
internal.
have 3 different parks run by 3 different people.
Yeah.
Telling a half of a person, you know, what needs to be done.
It's under internal service, it's just
When
past
I was
the
chair, I
accounting.
was running to all the parks, you know,
It's gonna be page,
to try to get things done and help out, which drug check we were talking about. So I always saw that as, you know, it's kind,
Page
parks
75.
are kind of an afterthought.
Yes, they are,
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, there's no question, in an ideal situation, if finances were not an option, we would need more personnel. If we really want to maintain the parks properly.
Right.
But we just don't have the resources.
75 or 79?
Oh, 75. Thank you.
So it is in the 2020 budget as a part-time position with no benefits.
75 and 79.
And I really like that intern idea.
It's worth trying.
Yeah.
There is a seeds program, yeah. Of course, with that, I'm not sure from a liability standpoint whether they do that, but it's worth having dialogue, you know.
You know, or could we hire seats to do it?
Well, that's what
our
we,
equipment,
yeah. That's what Todd's going to say. You know, and I thought we'd also would just post it, maybe there's someone that's retired that wants to, enjoys cutting grass, or a summer job or something, you know, we may find someone.
Or maybe post 3 part-time. One might want to do Old Settlers, a neighbor there. Somebody might want to do Miles.
We could post and see who applies and go from there. Yeah, you're right, we could break it down. There's no benefits involved, so there's,
We could save 3 marriages from someone who's just retired and the spouse says, you can go find something to do.
Commissioner Ansel.
So,
Okay, let me ask these Parks and Recs representatives here. If we look, I'm looking at the Parks and Rec budget here, and they are asking for a 50% increase in repair and maintenance, $10,000. Somebody want to explain that to me? You know, I read the narrative,
yeah, I did too.
but
I don't
it ain't,
remember.
there isn't much detail there.
Is that the grub shack again?
No.
No, if I may, and Ty, maybe you can help. I think it's not any one specific thing. It's a lot of, we've got the Mackinac Bridge that needs some help. We have the back covered bridge needs some work, stabilization of the bank there.
So they need 50% more than they're currently getting
I would say the way
for something they
Parks-
can't identify individual things for.
Oh,
I'm
gosh.
just, you know,
Right, no,
I'm just
gosh,
observing the
they
numbers.
cannot, because, and that's kind of, I don't think there's any one thing, but there probably is a priority list, at least that's the way I used to do it when I helped set up that budget. We had a priority list of those things. But I can tell you this, it's 50% more than it is, and probably 50% less than what they can use. Because they've got the old grub shack at the Miles Kimmerly Park. That's several $1,000s, and that's why it just keeps getting pushed down the road, because we just haven't had it. So that's going to be a big repair and maintenance cost, because it's either going to be repair and maintenance or demolition. And that's what we just can't seem to have it done while the board has made up their mind at that given time what they want to do with it. We also had the water line problem, that went under the road. I know that took some of our repair and maintenance budget for 19. So not listed specifically, but I just can tell you that there's a lot of things.
Well,
that
you know,
we
I would
have on.
support a modest increase like everybody else, and not such an excessive increase. That's my 2 cents.
And their budget has gone up considerably over the last few years.
Substantially.
And to me, I think the Mackinac Bridge should go the way of Rapunzel, as well as...
Line high? The cactus. I'm trying to get that cactus out
As
there.
well as the grub shack, in Miles Kimberly, because when I was on Park and Rec, it was almost $20,000 to fix it, and it's still a grub shack and it's falling over. So that was just to get a foundation underneath it. And if maybe some people will come forward like they did with the barn and want to save it and donate it. But to me, neither one of those things are worth saving. We can get the road commission to come over, take the bridge to scrap metal, and maybe they can make a car out of it. I don't care, But I don't know if you guys know the story about Rapunzel, but that was...
I know what it looked like in golf days.
You want to pack a courtroom, then
Right.
suggest it,
Well,
We had the
we
Girl
went
Scouts
through,
did
they
the
were gonna,
planning.
the Girl Scouts were gonna take care of it, and they were gonna paint it and do everything. When it came down to it, it was too hard. And so they didn't do it, so we ended up having it hauled away anyway. But that to me is, to paint that bridge and fix it out is not, what's it used for?
It's very popular though. Everybody loves the bridge, so I don't know.
Yeah.
They fish off it.
Yeah, I saw a girl jump off of it into the pond for $5.
Where?
Last time I was there,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
And she
nice.
came out all muddy
I
and
was
a
just, it
mess.
would be gross. You
Yeah,
couldn't pay me
and the two guys
$5,000.
gave her $5 for jumping off of it. I thought,
I've tried not the first time that's been done.
that's where I decided I really think it needs to go. But
Well, so
we're getting off subject, I'm sorry.
today, do you want a list of?
That's my fault.
Scott comes back to work, he could probably give us a list or, okay.
An estimate for how much it's gonna take to take the bridge down.
Yes, to demolish. And the grub shack, yes.
Well, we have 3 parks subcommittees, and they've all worked with Klaus on improvement plans and long-range plans. We know we already have a contract that we've accepted, I think, for the grub shack at Old Settlers.
Right.
But we haven't paid for that, so we gotta figure out how to pay for that. Scott does need a new tractor, that's on the list. So we're not, I mean, the issue is that we have so many needs, and so trying to figure out what's the most important need. But I would love this group to listen to the 3 plans from the 3 parks subcommittees. It's all mapped out. At Miles Kimberly, we want a walking trail. That's all mapped out. That would be very nice. And if we have parks for the county, we do need to invest in them. So I would urge us to meet with the Parks and Recreation Commission members sometime and have that discussion.
Commissioner Ansel.
Yes.
When I look at Parks and Rec and compare it to the HVAC system here or the roof across the street, it's not in the same league. I'm sorry. It just isn't. You know, it's a nice thing. If we had unlimited funds, then yes. But we are not in that situation today. We are in debt.
All right.
We owe a lot. We're in the hole. We can't afford everything. And we took on some big expenses that we're going to have to pay for. So, I'm just being honest. It's not in the same mode as some of the projects that we've already expended a ton of money on.
Commissioner Lauder.
Just a point. Of course, in 19, we're not even halfway there yet. But in 2017, we spent 27, almost 28,000 on repair and maintenance, and I do not remember the details. But I do understand what you're saying, and I get that. If we can squeak this out somewhere in our budget and take care of our parks, yes, I'm certainly in favor of that and taking care of them. But I get that. If we just can't, we just can't. I certainly understand that. We'll see where we're at when we get to the bottom line. But to really complicate things, as I drive in, I look at the northeast side of our driveway in, and I think, wow, that would just make a fabulous park there. We worked with Parks and Rec to create a usable space there. They would take an increase of our Parks and Rec budget, because we have to work in conjunction with our Parks and Rec department, I guess, to maintain and support and do that. But it's a beautiful area that is just not being used right now.
Commissioner Rushton.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks as though the 2019 budget was $154,000.
Mm-hmm.
It looks as though, and we're, almost September 1st, and it looks like not even $40,000 have been used from that budget. Is that correct?
These reports were run as of June 30th expenditures.
Okay.
Halfway.
So you only have May and June, yeah,
Okay.
expense-wise.
How much of that budget is currently available to Parks and Rec? Do we know?
You can find out.
To 2019.
I guess the point that I'm making is they haven't even spent last year's budget. What's the plan for that 100,000 that's still in the budget for Parks and Rec?
Their expenses for like just personnel go through October. And I think there was a possibility if it wasn't expended this year, if the grub shack that we approved that contract for, we had that 45,000. If it's not used and the plans don't fall in place to do it, then that money won't be spent. It will roll back to the general fund. And then it would just be anticipated since that contract's been approved, and we know we don't spend it out of this year's budget. If it's not plugged into next year, we would come and ask for a budget amendment? Is that kind of your, I don't think there's an intention to spend that 45. We've heard of nothing, at least from my office, in the way of purchase orders or anticipated large expenditures for that.
Well, that's what I was wondering, is the allocated budget for 2019, is there going to be a balance there, or are there funds there that the Parks and Rec can currently use out of the 2019 budget for some of these projects?
I think that there is money probably that they could use, just knowing the history of Parks and Rec. It's not the fastest moving group as far as getting their projects done. Things don't happen quickly.
How much was that contract with Goslin Zubek? I don't think that has been paid.
Well,
12,000.
Yeah, I think so. So I assume that will come from this.
But that's a different line
Is it?
item. That's gonna come from the
Goes to
contractual
overall,
services
right?
check, and right now we've got,
Was that from Parks and Recs or from?
yeah, but they've got 18.
No, I was looking, I think that, you're talking about the whole total Parks and
yeah,
Recs budget.
it's
right?
exactly.
Oh, I was just focusing on.
Yeah, no, the total
45,000.
Parks and Recs. I think that's what you're asking,
Oh.
right?
Right,
She's talking about
it's how much is left in their
Yeah.
budget that they can utilize this year for the projects that they're asking for next year. You know, and why aren't those projects being moved forward, I guess is what I'm saying. You know, we hear about all these needs, but we get little information about how much is actually getting done, but every year they want more and more money. And I have a hard time with putting more and more money towards this when, you know, a lot of times they don't even use the budget that they've been given.
Commissioner
Well, I think the 45,000 is accounted for in the grub shack and the tractor that Scott says he needs. So that's the 45. So we'll need to get with him as soon as he's out of the hospital and get moving on the tractor. And then work with Michelle and Jen on how to transfer the expense for the grub shack until next spring when they can do the work.
So what you're saying is the tractor looks like it could be this year?
Pardon?
The purchase of the tractor?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, and is this the best time to buy the tractor? I'm thinking it would be.
She might be.
They might go on sale.
I
Yeah,
think the
end of
plan
the
was to
season.
buy it this fall.
Yeah.
I'm gonna favor, go on sale.
I mean, if you look at the history, you know, in 2017, the budget was 126,000, that's what they spent. The next year was 142,000, and now they're asking for 154,000. And then, I don't know, the changes now is 163, so you go from 142 to 163, which is actually 20, I think it's 21,000 more.
I agree.
Part-time
So-
person was how much, what was that in salaries?
So it's more than a $10,000, it's a $21,000.
Yeah, that was just one item, one
Yeah.
line item.
Right.
They increased their contractual services and their repair and maintenance.
Well, and salaries went up basically 10,000 since then. So, you know, that's because we put that other person on, so that's 10,000 of it was extra help to mow.
Yes, from 17 to current, that would be correct. It started in 18.
So that was,
Right. So it's still 10,000 that
So
we're
there's
not accounting for.
eight, right, so you have their salaries in 2017, that was just one single person, and then in 18, you increased it to one full-time, let's say equivalent, and at the time, quarter time. And so that's now stayed through till 20. So if you wanted to compare, you'd compare 18 to current, so 142 to 163, and their two increases are repair and maintenance and contractual services. So they've done an additional 19,000 between those two roughly.
So that accounts for the 21,000 difference.
Pretty close, yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Give or take
Could
two
I
million.
suggest that at one of our future meetings, we ask Casey to come and speak to the planned budget expenses for this year and next year? Because I think Casey's on top of that, he meets with all three committees. and I think that would be appropriate.
Well, I mean, I think if we decide to go with and not change this, we don't really need to. You know, I mean, we're having the discussion about it, this is for Park and Rec right now. So I don't know that we want to, I know what you're saying, but once we approve it, do we need an explanation why we approved it?
I think it's still important to feel good about the budget decisions we make, and there seems to be some concern about how costly the parks are. So I think it would be appropriate to have that conversation. I really do.
Commissioner Locke.
May I ask, apparently there was a little bit of revenue seen from the harvesting of the trees at Miles Kimmerly?
Yeah,
So did that roll into the general fund then?
it's just coming in this year.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we'll see.
paper
Yeah.
company of something.
Didn't we just get
Yeah.
the check just recently?
Yeah, we've gotten lots of them.
Yeah, it
I
it
mean,
did come in.
you know, like
So
they
this
come
is
in every couple
another
weeks.
little thing to think about. I was trying to think
Yeah.
of a pitch for Parks and Rec, some good things. I mean, the parks, number one, the parks look good. We all know that. Everybody appreciates that. But we're getting a lot of volunteer services with the Veronica Valley Park in the restoration of the landscape, I'll say, with the nature plant, food plots and nature plantings, and all that isn't costing us anything, or a little bit of seed maybe for the seed, but there's some improvements to that park that we're seeing the benefit of, so.
Commissioner Stewart.
I just wanted to go back to the salaries to be sure I'm following
Yeah.
the right line here.
Uh-huh.
Looking at these, just salaries, I see the one FTE in 2017 of 20,198.96. And then, did you say that the 25 in 2018, the 25,547 was 1.25?
Yeah, so that included, at the time, we're talking people, that included Scott and David.
David.
Yep,
And
in
then,
2018.
and then when I come over
And then in
to
19.
2019, it's 5,000 more than what I'm looking at in 2018. Is it still 1.25 or is it 1.5 now?
You're saying for budget purposes in
The
19?
adopted budget for in 2019 is 30,407.
Mhm.
And then that carries through the numbers over to the department changes, it's
Mhm.
29,668. But that's above the 25,547. I was just trying to make sure I was following the numbers right.
Right, so audited means that was the actual expenses for 18, between the two people, and then in 19 through June, you don't have July, and then the portion of David here through August. So then,
When did he start in 18?
I'm just looking,
That
why
might
is
be
it
the-
5,000 more?
I don't think he did a whole
You
year in
mean-
18, did he?
Well,
Why is
pretty
it
much so, he got
25?
ill in September, so pretty much.
547, which
Yeah,
is
started in
1.25.
He got ill in
Uh-huh.
August.
And then if
though.
I look at the adopted budget
Yeah.
for
It was in
2019, it's
August.
30,407.
Yeah, it's just not a full year.
Than this number?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
But it still
no,
was on the
audited
payroll.
can mean, that depending
If
on the
they
other
said budgeted.
budgets, if David wasn't
Yeah.
needed at Parks or it rained, he was either at Senior Services or Ron.
So the amount should have been 34, that we
Yes.
were working out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The amount for
That
this year
explains
should
the
have been
difference.
30, yes.
That
Yes,
explains the
30.
difference I was reading. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good, you all set?
Yeah, thanks.
So is there any changes or anything to Park and Rec?
I do not agree with the increase. I don't think we can afford it. You know, if you look at all the other stuff we got going on, I don't agree. I would keep it status quo at best. We spend more on Parks and Rec than, on a percentage basis, than Grand Traverse County spends on theirs. A lot more.
I'd like to see that, that's interesting.
Commissioner West had his hand up.
Well, and that, because of what Tony just said, is why I think it'd be important to bring Casey here and have that discussion.
Yeah, you know, because I have a tendency to agree with Tony, myself, you know, just because of the things that we're spending on, it isn't a year, I don't think, for increases. You know, especially for something, you know, that is, what would you call it? That's
Discretionary.
exactly, that's a good word for it. So maybe that would be something if Casey has the time.
All right, I'll call and ask him to come.
Yeah.
So that's the consensus?
Right.
And hopefully Scott will be back and he can give you an update too on projects.
All right.
Because much of what they're planning, Scott knows about, so. So I'll put it on the agenda.
We headed to the health department. Now we're at the register.
Yeah, Dorothy was good to be here. Her mother's having knee surgery today, so obviously I told her to spend time with her mother. She will be here on September 10th. But I talked to her, the board is interested in how technology advancement has impacted her services and her staffing levels. And so what I asked her to do is, remember last year we did a survey of, I think, 11 counties and their salaries, and we did some personnel on prosecuting attorneys and the clerk's office. Dorothy's going to contact the same counties and see what their staffing levels are. So she hopes to have that information by the September 10th meeting. Her mother's having knee replacement surgery.
Okay.
So I said, of course, that takes priority in the budget process. And actually give her time to look at the staffing, because I think that's one of the questions that you have.
It is, yes.
How she's staffed compared to other counties about the same size we are.
Was there any questions about that? No? Well, just a note of interest, those little orange tags on the table, they say, leave the mics here, in that spot. If you can't read them, don't touch them.
Although the one on the left has been adjusted.
Has been adjusted.
Well,
unintentional.
The male perspective that Mr. Bunnick and I had, who's Mike? And why would we leave him here?
Is it like Sheldon in his spot?
Yeah. Supposedly, in those areas, they're not
We'll
supposed
see.
to have
No
interference.
squelch, huh?
Why don't you just tape them in place?
That's too complicated.
Well, you can't read the code either.
You can't-
Well, that's what I'm saying, why don't you just tape them
We
in
will.
place, even if you put a cursor every
Yeah.
place, you go, no, that's what you
Do it
want.
with Velcro. Yes.
So register deeds, we are deferring to another meeting to have that discussion?
Well, she's not available, so.
Oh, that's what I'm asking. Are we just
Yes.
deferring that
Yes.
to another meeting?
September
Yes.
10th.
And Park and
Ms.
Rec.
Chet's asked her to defend her IT needs or whatever. Her automation has changed.
Any other questions about register of deeds? Okay,
For
John?
any other information you'd like from Dorothy? I think that's what you were requesting.
Yeah. All right, so that brings us to the Leland Dam Authority.
Yeah, just a brief update. I guess the good news is, I was there Monday morning, I don't know if you saw the 9/10 report yesterday, did a thing on Fishtown. I was part of that. The water in the control room was almost gone. Now, doesn't mean it won't come back, but the way the winds were and everything, and you could tell it's down considerably at Fishtown. Now, that could come back at any time, but this whole thing with the assessment, everything is very complicated. I've asked David Stoker and Tim Perrone to be available on the 10th. We'll have a conference call with them. So, and I have invited all the dam authority members to be here. So we're all hearing the exact same thing, how the assessment, if you wish to do assessment, how you have to do it legally, and then what the options are. Because there's a lot of questions already coming about, well, what's the county going to pay for? What's the association going to pay for? Originally, the assessment was for the dam only. Can the county legally put in other projects on there? I was just talking to some dam authority members, because they're getting questions. Some Lake Owners Association members, they want assessment to include their future projects. So a lot of complex issues. John's been working with equalization. We'll just give a brief update on the actual district.
Yeah, well, the 2005 district was the last time that we actually assessed anything on the surrounding properties, and we're in the process of updating that map, so that we have a parcel count. As of right now, it looks to be 1,575 parcels.
10,000?
1,575 parcels.
1,175, okay.
Commissioner Ansel.
What do we want to do for the budget for Leland Dam is the question for today.
Well, part of it, because the dam authority, I think, has some other things they want to do next year also, so that's why we're having this joint meeting with them.
Well,
Go ahead.
may I ask a question about that? Because when you said that, I was wondering, the Lake Association, you said, wants us to include some projects they want to do.
I'm hearing this third hand from members of the, yes.
Okay, well, I guess my question right off the bat would be is, what does that have to do with us creating an assessment district?
Well, that's because it would be, they want to be part of the, they want these projects to be part of the assessment district, if we're going to do it.
Under what authority, though?
Well, that's the question, that's one of the questions.
Okay,
We have other members who on the lake who are saying that this is the county responsibilities.
sure.
That assessment district was strictly for one project, and therefore we have no authority to, I mean, there's a lot of legal issues.
Well,
Well, I had a meeting with, or I'm sorry, did you have a question for John?
No, John had his hand up, I can
Oh,
go.
go ahead.
I apologize, I just got an email from Rob Herman just now, and he says that with 98.5% accuracy, it's 1510.
1,510.
510.
1,500, say
Okay,
again, please.
I had an evening,
1,510.
Parcels.
I've got a map that he has given, so if you'd like, I will send this to Chuck right now.
everybody hear the 1,510.
Parcels in the old,
In the legal district, yes.
in that district.
but some of those parcels are undeveloped conservancies.
Farmland,
Yeah,
State lands.
state land.
state lands, lots of state land.
Lots of state land and launchings, boat launches.
Yeah, that's all a part of that, right, John?
Correct.
And does
So we'd
that-
have to filter that out, obviously.
Mhm.
Does that go all the way around the lake, and does it also include the river?
Yes.
It does not
Is it
include
just
the
north,
river.
or is it south too?
That's what I was wondering.
The river's all
Green are the
conservancy,
parcels.
Okay.
and state land. Victoria Creek.
Goes, yeah.
Right. And the last time they were assessed, the state was.
Can you share that with us, John?
We didn't want to pay it, but they did.
So he has
I can
Good,
forward
they
it.
pay.
Yeah.
Oh,
They have to.
Oh,
That's the
great.
current map based on our 2005 goal, and he's just cleaning it up. Sorry. I apologize.
So I have to say, I met with John Popa. We had a meeting, he wanted to discuss this district. He said that the Lake Association expecting the county to pay half of whatever it is, just as they did the last time. That's what the Lake Association is expecting. He also said he believes their budget's going to be about $100,000 a year, at least for the foreseeable 3 or 4 years. And they would like to have that one person, part-time, hired with that in order to monitor the lake level, to monitor the dam, they want to include all of their sensors as part of keeping the lake level as it is, and the person who's in charge of those, because now they have to already move one, because somebody has sold a property that was put in place. And so he thinks that all should be funded through this dam association, and like Chet said, that they believe because it was the county thing, some actually are saying the county should pay for it all, and it shouldn't have to go into any kind of a district. So he plans on putting it on the agenda for this executive committee meeting. He's asked Laurel, and he's asked me to put it on there, so I will do that for him. But he can't make it for that meeting, so he's hoping that we can move it forward to the regular meeting when he will be here, because he's going to be out of town next week. It's next week.
It's the week after.
next.
Yeah.
He'll be out of town.
He wanted to wait to actually to October. I said, well, our budget process is completed.
Right.
We can't
right.
wait.
Yeah, I told him
Unfortunately,
the same thing when he
he's
called.
out of town. The dates we have scheduled for our future meetings, he's only one member, but he's out of town.
well, so can we get Steve or?
No, all the dam authority members have been invited. So they're all, outside of John, I think they're all coming, September 10th.
Who is the chair?
Bob Joyce.
Bob Joyce.
So if the chair is available.
The chair is available.
The committee is available.
We contacted every member,
Right. So I'm just saying, because he's not going to be there, he really wanted to have some input, and he gave me a whole list. And he expects the county, they're expecting the county to pay about $100,000 in repairs and the engineering fees and all of that this next coming year.
But I didn't, I'm sorry, I didn't know he has to have an agenda, I've not seen that, but we're having a special meeting with the dam authority on September 10th. Why we have it on the regular agenda and discuss the whole thing only because of one member? I mean, that doesn't seem logical.
Right.
He can submit written
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah. we're gonna-
And
Well,
he's
he
not-
asked me to put it on as a member, so I said I would. He wanted me just to put it as a late addition on our regular meeting. I said, no, I'll put it on the executive, we can discuss it and see if it goes to the regular meeting. I said, we'll do it in our normal, type of situation. So I told him I'll talk with Laurel and put it on.
But what's the date of our executive in September?
10th. 10th, yeah.
Okay.
But he'll be back for the 17th. He won't be here for the 10th.
Okay, but we're having a special dam meeting on the
On the
10th in
10th.
the afternoon, so why would we put it on the executive committee agenda? I guess I'm questioning why we would.
Right, just to move it forward into the Tuesday, is all I was saying. I don't want to put it on as a late edition.
We could still move it forward to Tuesday.
Yeah, that's
From
all
that
I
other
wanted to
meeting.
do.
We don't,
Oh,
we can
Just
just.
through the regular process.
I thought he wanted a special just because he was not going to be available.
No,
That
no.
was
He
his
was
original
just,
plan.
his original plan to me was just put it on as a late edition on the 17th. And I thought, well, let's just put it on, because we're going to have that meeting with them.
Right. Do it
On the
then.
10th.
On the 10th. And we'll just try to move it forward, I just think. Commissioner Answer.
Are we going to be discussing this potential special assessment district at that special meeting? And we will have the opportunity to have that discussion about what, if any, the county is going to pay towards that special assessment district?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. I assume that's the main purpose of the meeting. This will be first in the major item on the agenda for September 10th.
And you said that the attorney's going to be participating by
On the
phone.
phone, yeah. Two of the attorneys, they were the ones that wrote the legal opinion when the district was set up. And Steve Christensen and I have talked to them. And you have a copy from the opinion from, I forgot the date on it, it was to Mr. Gill, I passed out last meeting. And that still is a legal valid opinion.
So, Mayor, okay. Obviously, John, some of the numbers we're going to need then for that meeting, it's not just parcel numbers, but maybe a breakdown of what those parcel numbers are. So of the 1,500 parcels, are 1,100 of them residents or homes? Perhaps there are any businesses, how
Well, I
much?
think they'll have a breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah, by the 10th. I've asked Rob and Lori if we position to be at the meeting also.
The point being, how many residents in the actual homes are 16,000 perhaps? Homes or residents in our?
According to the health department.
Yeah. That must be where I got the number then. 16,000, so if 1,000 of them are around the lake,
But one lake, there's many lakes.
well, we're talking about one lake.
Yeah.
So my point being, therefore, those people who live on, Glen Lake,
Right.
they're going to say, well, I don't want to pay for that lake. I'm already paying for my own lake. So that's why last time we just ended up doing it 50-50, because it could be argued that everybody in the county gets the benefit of the lake, whether they drive by and see it or actually put their feet in it. So there you go.
Commissioner Answer.
A special assessment has to provide a benefit to the properties being assessed. The benefit does not have to be equal for every parcel. I've been involved with special assessment districts where an undeveloped parcel pays less than a developed parcel.
That's what we did last time.
So, you have to look at it from a benefit basis. Who benefits and how much do they benefit? And if there is no benefit, you can't assess. So that's the special assessment part of that. And my question will be, what's the benefit to the county? Do we own property on the frontage on that lake? We should be assessed for those parcels, just like the state would be, Leelanau Conservancy would be, you know, like anybody else. So that's going to be my question. What is the benefit to the county for those parcels that we own that are part of that special assessment district?
The other question to go along with that one, I know our property is involved in a special assessment because of a flooding situation, which is downstream, which doesn't benefit our property, but it's contributory. Anyone who may potentially contribute
You're in the
then
watershed.
is in the
Right.
watershed. So I think one of the questions also is, does the county benefit, and does the county have responsibility for contributing to the problem?
Like I said, from a legal perspective, and this has been debatable, and Mr. Popa sometimes has to remind it, the court order and our legal responsibility for the county was to maintain the dam at a certain level at the dam. We do not have any legal responsibility to what's happening in other parts of the lake, or where the
So
lake levels are.
perhaps that
Because
question's already
remember, we've
answered.
had people from the community, especially on the south end of Lake Leelanau, they were upset at the water level. And other people have suggested we put sensors throughout the different parts of the lake. That's up to you, but legally, our sole responsibility is the dam and its water level by court order at the dam.
So if that was the real question I was
Right.
asking, is
So-
do we have any legal responsibility?
For example, a couple years ago, somebody wanted us to dredge the Leland River. Somebody wanted us to dredge in Lake Leelanau Narrows. Can you do that? Yes. Are you legally responsible for it? No.
And actually, that was something that Mr. Bova brought up as well, that they're still talking about dredging because the boats can't get down the Leland River. You know. But that doesn't, that there's enough water going through the river, that there's more water go through the river than can go over that dam. So we have no responsibility for that. Commissioner Rushton.
I was just going to say, you know, it appears as though John is taking on the position as spokesperson for the
Dam Authority. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, for the all members on the lake, in thinking that we are responsible for all of these things, like the monitors or the dredging and all of this, and when in all actuality, we're not responsible for any of those things financially. But I guess the question is how are we going to work together? You know, and that's, I think, where we have to make the decision.
And that was my question, because I'm not
Yes.
going to just slap an assessment district on Lake Leelanau for a group of people who really have,
Well,
no elected position, I'm going to say it that way, to the public.
Commissioner Rushton.
I'm disagreeing with you.
no, I'm okay with that. I was just trying to say that those needs that are out there, you know, like the dredging or the watching of the monitors and things like that, that might be desirable for them. We may get a benefit from that, but it's not our responsibility. So, as an association, can they not take on these issues themselves? Yeah, so.
John has a point.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Rushton, for the minutes, could you please clarify which John you're talking about?
John Popa?
Thank you.
I couldn't hear that comment, so I don't know what that.
He wanted me to clarify which John I was referring to.
Well, just because some people have stated their opinion, my opinion is that we should only do what we must do. That it's not our obligation to make sure that those people on the south end of the lake maintain their waterfront. I think we do what we have to do to comply with our obligations.
Well, but he showed me the graphs that have, you know, that for the August, that of the water monitors, and he's saying that we're not doing our job. Because of those monitors aren't showing that we're keeping it exactly at that level.
In the court level. Court
At the
order.
dam.
Court order level.
At the dam.
Yeah, well, he's saying at the, well, I don't know where these were, but,
Well,
you know.
see, that's the problem. He's monitoring other parts, because I talked to him.
Yeah,
I hate to be callous, but it really does not matter what the water level is at the Narrows or at the south end of Lake
Right.
Leelanau. It's only what's at the dam.
see, but we're paying for that, and that's why we now have that, you know, the internet at the dam now, and then, you know, so now they're gonna use that against the county if, you know, if they're not happy with what happens. So we're setting ourselves up in some ways by putting all this information in and out there. I mean, that's what I gathered
I
from
think
it.
there's
That's John didn't
it's
say
just a
that.
question of interpretation about that court order. I don't think it's just as clear as at.
No,
the
but we got a
dam.
legal opinion from Mr. Cole several years ago.
I know, but I
And
think
it clearly
it's
states
challenged.
it has to be the level at the dam that you're responsible. You did have suggestions, but suggestions are not legal mandates. The other issue is just from a political standpoint, not to talk about John Popo, but he's not the chairman of the dam authority. And normally, we would not put something on the agenda unless we check with the chairman. So I feel like I have to call Mr. Joyce. Mr. Joyce has made it clear to me in the past that he's supposed to be the spokesman for the dam authority, not other board members. So I will call Bob Joyce, just so we follow proper protocol.
So where does that leave us for the dam for 2020?
Well, we're going to discuss it on the 10th. And
We're not putting anything in, just wait until the 10th and just do it all then? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think there's a lot of questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if anything, you just be guessing.
I would say that we put money on that things that we get reimbursed for. Or I'm willing for us to pay for those as long as we can be reimbursed, but things that, now that the water's down, if we don't have to put the sump pump in and we don't have to do those things. And I do think we've hit our high water mark for this year,
Hope so.
you know, so hopefully that could all be in place. Well, I mean, July is usually the high water mark, you know, yeah, exactly. And, you know, so if we can do without doing that, then all these repairs and things would be from the special assessment. And we just do the engineering study that we would be reimbursed for.
I was quite surprised when I walked in there Monday morning. There was virtually no water. There was one small puddle in the far corner. The rest was completely dry. I mean, it wasn't even wet.
We haven't had any rain.
Yeah, we haven't rain.
A little bit.
All right, I'll talk to Bob Joyce. I just don't want to create
All right.
an internal.
No, that's good,
division.
and I appreciate that, and you're right, you know, and if we don't put it on, that's fine with me. You know, just tell him, we talked with Bob Joyce, and he said no, you know. Because of, you know, we don't need to, because we're having the meeting afterwards.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we did IT, so that brings us to the prior budget request.
Well, I think we've had everyone except for Dorothy and the parts who had requests. We've discussed them all now between last week and this week. And so I don't know if at this time how you want to meet, if you want to go over those requests from last week and this week and come up with priorities or decisions, how you wish to proceed, because at some point, Michelle and Jen need to know what to put and what not to put and for how much in the budget.
I would say if we know today, tell them what we know today.
Pardon?
If we can make a decision today on anything, I think we should make a decision if we know.
Well, then they can put in a budget and they can come back to you and say, okay, this is where we are as
Right.
of now. You can
Right.
change it, obviously.
Right.
Do we want to make this list, do we want to talk about this list? I don't know if we still have it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Take a
sure,
break?
sure. Let's take
Can I
a
have
5-minute break.
You want to make a copy of that?
Well,
In case people don't have it. No, I mean, I can here's a copy, a clean copy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. make a
I still
copy.
have my one.
Because most people have theirs.
Right.
It's a little, I'm recording.
Let me carry this to the clerk.
No, because we can't, because I already set, can't change it.
Yes, you can have
So I
some
did
chat.
state that.
But she said something like 60 or so. How about that?
All right, so number one, are we looking at allowing $118,000 for a boat? if he doesn't get his grant, we're gonna do this again next year?
I think we have to put it in the budget for this year, but we should know by October 1st if we'll be able to take it out. Because if he doesn't get it, no, I don't want to see this again.
I don't think we need to put it in our budget at all, myself. We didn't take it on a contingency, because we never really put it in the budget, I don't think originally. It's always been, we just get it from DTR or someplace if we have it. What?
Right, you are correct. Once we know of the award, if it's something, because you have accepted the application to apply for it, if it is awarded to you, that will come back to say yes or no, you want to accept it.
Right.
And once you do that, we don't want to, I mean, when I say we would not recommend that you actually put it into your adopted budget. You want to do it after the award is there and you accept it. Then we'll transfer the money appropriately for next year at the time. Because it's going to have to be a full outflow of the full cost. And then from what the sheriff has said, he has said it's a very quick turnaround. I don't know, I've never dealt with that to know how quick it will be. And then he's also talked about there might be a donation towards it coming in, but I wouldn't think if that's the case, anyone would do that until they know that it's here.
So you're saying don't put it in at all?
We have not in the past.
We have not in the past. We would just keep in our minds. And we can
I'm good
pull it
with
from
that.
fund balance or whatever at the
Yeah,
time being.
that's okay.
Okay.
Hopefully the gift will come in. It is
Not on the
changing.
budget.
All right. Okay, and then the inmate housing, $30,000. Commissioner Redmond?
I didn't really feel a big burning need for the cameras. If we have cameras and they're working, I don't see that even if the images are a little bit fuzzy, that it would have that much trouble identifying within the jail itself who, was the perpetrator. I wasn't exactly convinced that they needed the cameras at this point.
Any other thoughts on it? Commissioner Lund?
I think there's some value to really good cameras in the year 2020. Just because we've got so much liability campus-wide. So I think they're important. If we can swing it, if we can fit it in there, I think, or at least a piece of it to start upgrading the cameras, I feel like we need to do it. And we have areas that just aren't good coverage. The picture isn't good. The fact that one of these cameras is so much better than trying to keep track of screens that have several images from, one area. So I just think they're important. So I would say leave it in for now, or at least a portion of it.
Commissioner Redmond?
I don't know, I can't remember what he said, how much each camera costs, but maybe a portion, I'd be okay with that, but I just didn't feel that, we needed to go to that extent at this point.
As I remember, he did say he'd be happy to do it over a couple-year period.
Yeah, he did. That's
Where
what he
we
said.
could buy cameras as one used, put the new ones in, let's just say, 10 cameras, take the 10 out, keep them, if other ones go bad, just pop them in, the ones that work,
Right.
and do it over a period of years. I think he actually said that he'd be happy with that.
Well, and I like Jen's suggestion that we do some this year and then we do some next year.
Right.
I believe that's what you said, that we could do that.
On the cameras?
Yes.
The cameras I mentioned, that comes from, if you're going to do that, we do generally take it from the inmate housing. The AEDs, I definitely said could be this year and next year.
Yeah, that's next
The
year.
cameras, that's up to you too. There is still inmate money, but he just completed the project that they just did. And so his quote, and I'm not sure, I know I pointed out to Tony that at that meeting, and that quote that Todd has, if you go to your narrative,
It's
it
26,208.
yeah, it states if he doesn't use it though, there's a fee. Yep, we were looking at, and I think it's if he goes with someone else. which that might not affect, but I don't know if the quote means you have to do all of those cameras to not pay the fee, or if it was just a service.
Well, I think part of that quote is equipment, not just the camera, but it's also replacing some
Yeah.
recording equipment.
Yeah, it was recording equipment.
Get away from
and 3
analog as
cameras.
opposed to digital.
It was recording equipment and install 3 cameras.
Do you have any more? I thought you had another document you handed out last week. Did you
Yeah,
not?
there's a,
Jen, when you say that there's money in the inmate, because that's what I had written down too,
uh-huh.
is that something that would be available for them to use?
Yes, that's when they make a capital improvement over what the initial building was in 2005, instead of taking it from the general fund to supplement, I've been using the inmate housing.
So if it were approved, that's what you would use? It
Yes,
wouldn't be?
it doesn't affect the general
doesn't
fund.
affect
It
the
affects it
general
in the
fund.
sense it's a transfer in. So I know we discussed, I know I did mention that if you don't want to do that project next year, that the transfer in would be coming in less, but then so is the expense to the general fund line item. Because it's a capital improvement. And I put that under just as Todd's budget as like an equipment replacement type of form, where in the original assessment it was actual part of the building. But I can't find my notes. Sorry about that.
Yeah, it does say if we don't go with that proposal, that we have to pay them $1,600 for their technician's time when they came up.
Yeah. So if you don't do it, you have a $1,600 fee. Meaning, however you want to look at it, because they came up and gave you a quote.
So the
Yeah.
30,000, is that the whole?
Well, and he mentioned that when he was here, that he did put it in as 30, but that really, it's 26,208.30 on that,
Quote.
on that quote, on that proposal.
He said that there was always some additional labor or whatever that was associated with it, which is why
Yeah,
he
like
put it
this
in
last
as
time,
30.
they found a niche or something that they had to
Something they had to
replace
do.
something else in.
Commissioner West.
I like the idea of cutting that down to 15,000 this year, take it out of inmate housing, and then the same thing next year.
So decrease the 2020 budget to 15,000. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And that is, we're assuming will cover 1.5 cameras or 1 camera or?
Well, but this year, I think he can still have
Do
enough
you maybe want to ask Chet to ask Todd to reconfigure if he can do this?
Yeah, but I thought.
Only because it does say there is going to be a
I
fee.
thought,
Yeah.
Yeah, he
So-
was
part
very
this year, part next year.
Right,
So
so I guess,
I'll confirm, but
yeah, confirm if his
We'll tell him
proposal can
15,000.
be a 2020 and a 2021 purchase.
No.
Because like I said, it does state, the contract video upgrade agrees to the technicians on site is $1,600. So that would have to be allocated
Well,
if they're
they
still
may.
going to charge us if they don't go with the project.
I'm
I'm
sure we
just-
can
Well,
get that way.
Or will they allow us to do it over 2 years?
Right, since
They
it's
might.
still done.
I'm
Still
sure.
done. But with the 21 cameras, he wants done, right?
I'm here,
That's the big number.
There's a 21 overall.
license,
He's gonna do
I think he
some-
said if you include all the ones in this building too, it would be 21. Wasn't that it? Wasn't just for the
Yeah, I
jail?
can't remember how many. But his priorities are the ones in the jail.
Yeah.
So 15,000, I'll confirm that he can.
Yeah, I'd say
do
this
that.
looks like it's 24.
And
That's
you can
just
keep those as
Okay.
backups,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So
Okay.
like you said, maybe they don't do the employee parking lots, but maybe they do the jail lobbies
We'll look
and the
at
work
more.
vestibule,
Yeah,
Okay.
his highest priority.
Okay, so right now I'm going to put on your list 50/50. That's
I'll
what you're
put
thinking?
15,000.
I think it was because of the girls that were in the jail, the women, that he needs these extra cameras. Wasn't it because of that? Isn't that what he said?
I thought we just talked a lot about the difference in being able to see the clarity of
Right.
the new.
The sheriff talked about the females.
Yes, the
Oh,
sheriff talked
yeah.
about the females.
Oh, that's-
These would be lobby areas, so they were saying if someone comes in, that they're able to then zoom in on them. Because it's jail lobby and visiting corridors, it's main lobbies and work release.
Come on.
And then the other ones are the outside externals. They just want to see who's coming in. Better.
Better.
Okay, so I wrote down 50/50.
All right.
15K and 15K, and Chet's gonna get back to
I'll confirm.
if that's allowable, or if that's applicable.
So that brings us to the defibrillators.
The defibrillators, I
Yeah.
did state 50/50, sorry.
I was disappointed that we have any cars without these, and I think we ought to direct the sheriff that it's his job to maintain these, and we ought to pay for this round of them. We need these in every car.
I agree.
I agree.
Yep.
So you don't want to do it this, half this year and half
I
next?
think we need whatever we
Yeah,
need, so
at the very least,
one in
half
every
this year.
car.
Yeah, at the very least, half this year, and, yeah.
We need to, I think, look at some sort of rotational programming with that, and I think we briefly discussed that.
Right.
And I'm not opposed to making sure that we have one in every vehicle, and maybe he'll end up with, some extras for stock in the event one goes down. But I think that going forward, they need to know that we need to have a planned program for X amount of AEDs annually.
Well, let me talk to the sheriff, I'll tell him, come up with a plan, has one in every vehicle immediately. Because he said all but, what, 4 of them have them? And I know they all have probably different expiration dates.
Right.
So we don't have to buy them all at once.
Right.
But let's just, I just mixed up, let's say we buy 6 of them, we put 4 in the vehicles, we have 2's backup, there's other ones age out, and just keep changing them every several years. So I'll talk to the sheriff, we'll get
look at their
we'll get a full
expiration
plan in place here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, but we did talk about it being this year.
Well, yes, yeah.
Get them right away.
Let's see if we can do half this year.
Yeah, no, I'm sure.
Let's get a solid number with a
Yeah.
plan in place so that we know.
Yeah, that's.
But as of today, I would suggest, putting the 35 in, and we can always adjust that once we get more information.
You want us to put
I thought
35,000?
if we do half this year and we do half next, we'd only have to put half of it in for next year. We get them right
Is
now,
that-
half of them right now.
Is that going to cover the needs?
Should be, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm okay with that, if we do half, if it covers.
Yeah.
Well, let me talk to sheriff. Your goal is to have one in every car,
Right.
Yeah.
as soon as possible.
And
Yeah.
if we can do half this year, that'd be preferable.
And we might not even have to do half. I don't know when they expire,
Well,
and
and
if we-
that's the
Yeah.
thing, if we've got ones that are going to expire this year, that need to be
Mhm.
replaced this year,
That's
that
right.
will determine
Yeah.
the number we need.
Yeah. I think you're all saying the same thing. So let me let me work with the sheriff, come up with a plan.
Get the 4 new ones, have a couple in the can if
Yeah.
we need them,
Yeah.
so that,
Yeah.
and then get on a schedule,
Yep.
so.
All right. Got
Well
it.
said.
Got it.
Good job. Okay, so then we go to the law enforcement information network? Don't we have that all?
I don't think we had a choice on that.
We don't have
No.
a choice, not since
got it.
our exposure.
All right, and then generator replacements, I think we've already okayed that. I think that's going to happen this year.
Right, Chip?
Was he coming to the meeting, or did
I-
you guys just go ahead and say that he's purchasing the generators?
I thought we approved it.
Didn't you tell them?
I thought we did.
Yeah, was it on the agenda?
I have my notes say that we're gonna give them 54,000 in 2019.
Yeah, this year.
That could be taken care of this year. And this was for both Central and the Maple City Tower.
Right.
Yeah, I know we discussed it, but because he's gonna go out for the generators, and he's going to come to you with the bids, I think is what you
For
said.
this year.
Right,
For
for
this
this year,
year.
right.
Right.
So this is a no, this is a 0, because it's gonna happen in 2019.
Right.
Okay.
And I'll confirm with Matt that
Yep.
he
Yep.
started the process.
I thought you mentioned to him, he said it was
Yeah.
pretty easy to handle. Okay.
And then the Town Tower, I think, are we going to just appeal to them to pay for it?
I would say wait till we hear from them, yeah.
Yeah,
So let's-
so we don't want to put that.
Don't put
budget.
it in the budget.
Mhm.
Yeah, you told him that he was to go to
Yes.
them.
But I'll confirm that,
And not through 2%.
yes.
Correct.
So the 21,000 that's already in, the supplemental Motorola console maintenance, That's in his contractual under dispatch.
Yeah.
That was just new, so we brought it to you.
Right.
Now, the 2 tower amplifiers in Central and Empire,
Yeah, I don't remember what we decided about that.
I have written down portable radio equipment on tower itself. So that the new equipment will be able to talk to the portables.
Right, but I didn't know that this had to be done. It's something he
Right.
wants to do at the,
I also had it crossed off. So.
yeah. So I'm thinking that we're not planning on doing that.
And was this for the road commission? For the advantages of the road commission?
No,
No.
I don't think it was road
No,
commission.
okay.
It was,
It's mainly for the portable radios.
Urge him
Uh-huh.
to make a 2% request.
It needs to do the
for the phone.
2%
and
request.
these are your tower top amplifiers improve the ability of radio communications for the portable radios. They will also improve building penetration and radio coverage in the fringe areas of Leelanau County. It says a TTA already exists on Bugai Tower in Elmwood. A TTA can be purchased and installed in 2 ways, either directly through the vendor, such as Motorola. Electing to go through a vendor is the quickest option to install this equipment, however, it's also the most expensive. I believe that this is the topic where he said if you approved this, when someone was going to be out there, it would be installed, so we didn't have to pay for it extra. Coordinating through the MPSC at CS will eliminate the cost of installation because your work would coincide with their routine maintenance schedule. So their tower climbers are already there, scheduled to be on site, and they would only be we would only be responsible for the unit themselves. They don't have a specific date where they perform the routine maintenance, but they would be aware that we'd be interested in the opportunity.
And Jen, is there money in the tower fund? Did
Yes.
you- Yeah, so that's what, I thought we said it just take from tower fund, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
and-
have, my other note that I've written down here is we can wait.
Right, that's what I had. I had checked crossed off.
Meaning
I
that it
just-
didn't need to be this year, that it wasn't pressing like the generators?
Right.
That's what I took from it.
Right,
Okay.
that's what I had
Okay,
too.
so we would be putting this into the budget for 2020, and he would correspond with this group to have it done when they're there. Was that
Is that what
everyone?
you
No.
just said, or are you saying?
No,
not?
they're saying wait.
No, wait.
Take
This
it
is
out.
not a
We don't want
priority.
it in.
For 2021 maybe.
This is not a priority, right? That's what you're saying.
Right.
But didn't he say, when I read before what you just repeated, that it would improve the 911 communication in those fringe areas where there's no communication right now?
Yes, that is
I
correct.
think that's why he was requesting it.
He also said we could wait, because I think of the upgrades to the towers that are going to occur.
And it wouldn't guarantee 100% anyway.
No, he said it wouldn't.
The
It'd still be
question-
nice.
And it's just for the portables.
The question, if we
That's right, they
wait,
had the other radios.
it's the install cost, it would triple. So it'd be $45,000 just for installation. So this number would potentially could rise to $60,000 to $75,000 if we wait.
Mhm.
So I think we have to consider that.
Yep, this does state, I didn't read that portion.
Right.
It states it's approximately 15,000, whereas the cost would triple going directly with a vendor.
Right.
So if you do wait, it will be, if you don't set it up where it's their routine maintenance.
Commissioner Angelo.
they come out on a regular
Yeah.
basis, on a, periodic basis. So yes, if you say, I want to schedule this next month, and it's not that time, then you're going to pay extra. But if you just wait until the normally scheduled time when they come out,
It's not
whether
gonna
it's
cost
in
us.
2020 or 2021, it's not going to cost you.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, because that's an important point. I thought this was a one-time opportunity.
They-
Okay,
I think they
so
come several times a year.
Yeah, but we don't schedule it, they do.
we can wait.
Okay.
So you want to wait till 2021?
Yep.
Yeah.
Unless we have misunderstood him and he
Well,
wants to come back.
I'll confirm.
Yeah, he can double check. I mean, the money's there.
Yeah.
I wrote down that he said it's not an emergency, it's
Right.
not emergent.
I don't think it's like, I think what his maybe emergency was, it's not like your AED or your generators like now.
Right.
Which you would be taking in 19.
But he does have the money to do
He
it.
does have the money to do this.
So
Yes.
it would come out of that, the tower
Either way,
fund
if you don't
budget.
do it in 20, then you're telling him you'll do it in 2021.
But it's still going to be the tower fund budget.
Still tower fund budget. So still, actually, it's a 468 fund, so that's, when Peachy brought up the 54,000, that's what I was quoted at the last meeting. The capital improvements tower fund already has $54,000 that's allocated currently for upgrades, and there's nothing budgeted.
But for the budget purposes, we're talking about what to add or delete from the general fund. So let me just check with Matt on that and get
Yeah,
that,
because this
because
is
it is
not,
the tower
yeah,
fund.
this
We
is
can make
not,
that
a-
decision.
yeah, general fund.
We don't need to
Fund, right.
resolve that now. It's not gonna change the general fund with or without, it's gonna be the same general fund.
Right, correct, there's no
Yeah,
general
so-
fund money. So if he says that in his plan, he would like to do this next spring or next fall, and Chet comes back and says, it's either next spring or next fall, the money's there, it's up to you.
Then we can come to you at that point.
Yep.
Mhm.
So right now, I say we just go forward.
Okay.
The next one is the capital projects parking lots.
I don't think we have much of a choice on that. We put it off.
We're gonna try to get it done now before the
No,
snow
no, no,
flies, or-
No, next year, we're talking about next year.
I mean, it really needs to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Let's leave it in.
I mean, some of the cracks are,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You want this one?
and then we got the probate, family court.
As I mentioned, when the judge was here, it sounded like a lot of the work was clerical, answering phones, standing at the front desk, taking in the customer. And I think if we can alleviate some of the responsibilities to those other employees and allow them to do their more professional or technical work, I think that we should allow that department to utilize our temporary roving staff to do that kind of work, and see how that plays out before we add another employee to that department. Because I don't really think that they've utilized the resources that are currently available to them. And that's where I'm at on that issue.
Commissioner Rick?
I think that she indicated that the problem is because it is the court documents, and maybe Michelle can weigh in on this, that there's a certain amount of accuracy that needs to be consistently applied that may not, you may not get that with a temporary employee or a part-time employee. I mean, maybe a part-time employee you could, but we can't really have a part-time employee because that's,
Well, you can have a part-time employee, you just have to
Well,
budget.
right.
Right.
That was a temporary, but not as a temporary employee.
Correct,
So-
there's a difference,
So
there's two
utilizing the temps is what I'm saying. That didn't sound realistic to me. Also, there's something that it has in the narrative here that she had talked to Judge Nelson about, and then she also said she talked to him again the day that she was here. And I think that what's happened is over this period of time, they have built up this backlog. And it probably should have been taken care of when Judge Nelson was still here. And then Judge Kromkowski inherited this kind of washed over. And that we really do need to add somebody back in there. With the amount of cases that she's documented and everything that's going on up there, I have different page numbers written down here that, I don't know if that will help. As I stated before, I think that we need another full-time employee up there.
Commissioner Wood?
Well, I was alarmed at the judge's response to my question about liability issues, and I'm concerned about that. And I had a conversation outside of this room following up on that, and I do believe we have an issue. One of the reasons why I've been interested in the Register of Deeds office is I think it would be possible, without adding staffing levels, to split a position between the two offices, part-time in the judge's office and part-time in the Register of Deeds, so that we have some continuity, and if we hire a part-time person, they might be gone any time. But I would urge us to hold off on this discussion until we have our discussion on the Register of Deeds. And we might be able to combine those two discussions and solve the judge's problem without adding cost.
Commissioner.
I just found out what I was looking for. The number of probate filings has increased by 68% in 2011. That was, when the other position was gotten rid of. So it's just that there's been such a big increase in what's going on, and with the number of elderly people that need guardianships, or what's the other word that she used? Somebody else looking over their stuff. I still feel very strongly that they really need the help up there, and they need a trained, well-trained person. For absences, when Ms. Richards is out of the office, just to really help the court to proceed in the manner that it should be taken care of.
Well, and one thing I think that the Judge Kromkowski came into was the backlog, as Commissioner Wessel said, because Josephine was gone for, I think, 9 months. I thought it was 6, for 9 months. So there was only one person in that office. So of course there's going to be a huge backlog. Now she's back, but even now she's with a walker, and so I don't know that it's needed for a full-time person only, but that backlog has been created, and the full-time person who comes back is working. I'm sure she's working as hard as she can, but she's not going to be as productive with the walker as she had been before, I think. So you do have this problem, and I don't think, the new judge, she ends up seeing that she needs a new person. But it's just because of created backlog from only one person being in there.
Well, the 68% increase, though.
Well, but if you look at the overall, it's actually about the same. If you look down at the bottom line of that, one was 248, one was 263 overall. There's one item she picked out and highlighted the things that came high, but she didn't talk about the 3 or 4 things that actually are way down. So those may take more time. I don't know which ones do or don't. But and I do think I like your suggestion of a part-time person. And I know it can't be a temporary because of the thing, but if we, just like the Park and Rec, we all have somebody 0.25 time, or something like that, to help out and to get rid of this backlog, because I certainly don't want us to be in trouble for, delinquent or, whatever the reasons were.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rushton had her hand up, didn't you?
Oh, you basically what I wanted to say is I like the comments that Commissioner Wessel had stated, that maybe we can pull somebody out of Register of Deeds. We don't know that yet. But I also wanted to bring up the point that, yes, for the last year, she's been understaffed due to medical problems with current employees. And I think Commissioner Bunnick addressed that issue. So maybe temporary is not the right solution, but I really think maybe a part-time person could be the fix, and then it would allow us the opportunity to review this again next year and see if she in fact needs more help.
Commissioner Suderslip.
I was just going to raise the question, we don't really know that the reason was backlog. I mean, I believe Judge Kromkowski stated that when Josephine was gone, she was not judge for the majority of the time. So I don't know whether or not Judge Nelson hired someone from the temp pool to help out or not.
Only
Do we
towards
know
the very
this?
end, most of the time, help you out, Michelle, most of the time there was no one filling in for Josephine, correct?
So just
It was
some of
only
the time.
at the very end.
At the very
that
end,
They got it.
and for certain matters, the circuit court judge's office in Traverse City handled the family division portion. Susan is separate from the family division, but Traverse City office helped out and did that.
Well, help us out here, because I don't understand, you know the courts. When Josephine even is there, she does not do Susan's work, right? I mean, that's a separate, right? They don't share the same duties, right?
That would be my understanding,
Yeah,
correct?
so,
But could they?
well, that's a different question, yeah.
Joe Polo said they do.
But-
But anyway.
But then, I agree, I like Commissioner Russell's suggestion, and it would, as Commissioner Rushton said, give a chance to assess, you know, how a half-time person, if it clears it up, if it's enough, and maybe keep it that way. But it is a person who works both places, so at least it would be a start at looking at it.
Commissioner Redpath.
I was also concerned about the narrative saying that, you know, the judge was trying to do the court recorder's job. And I don't know, Michelle, if you can tell us how much time is spent in that courtroom, that you have to have a person in there with that recording.
Well, I'll just comment in general, not specifically to what
Okay.
you're just asking. I prefer not to. When court is in session, it has to be recorded. Judge Nelson always turned the recorder on himself. They have the same type of system that I'm using right here. I'm not certified. Upstairs in that office, the judge is certified, as is Josephine. Susan used to be, I don't know if she is right now. They use the same type of system in district court, and there's some circuit court where I am, when I'm in court mostly. We use the people, the actual reporters. But whenever you have a court proceeding, it has to be recorded in one format or the other. The circuit court does not use recording and video as a rule. Even when we do polycoms, we have a court recorder at one of the locations that we're in, whether it be right with us or right by the judge.
Well, I just found that very distressing when she said that, you know, that they had to go back and try to recreate the case. And I just think it's important that they have someone in there that's monitoring that situation. So for whatever portion of that position is needed for that, I think that alone.
Commissioner Watt.
Yes, thank you. I think that situation was an unusual situation and one that it was a mistake. I think that's a learned thing for them, and I think now that she knows how it works and how it should work, there's no reason she can't press the button in the beginning, make sure it's running, and press the button at the end. And if she has to have a separate redundant system, it's easily rectified. But I'm not going to support additional help up there. I think there's plenty of staff up there. I think that given a little bit more time, they will figure out how to make it work with the help they have up there. Because in comparison, the caseloads just don't add up to that much staff compared to other counties. So the percentages, yeah, you can take a very small number and increase it by 50%, and it looks huge, but yeah, it's a small number. So I think it will all, I understand there was a backlog. I think they with a little bit of team effort up there, that they can work it out and get it figured out. I give them a lot of credit. I've got a lot of faith in them up there. They'll figure it out.
My question was actually from Michelle. Michelle, can you tell us how many days they're actually holding court a week? Is it 1 day a week, 2 days?
My only interaction with when they have court, she has a lot of days that I'm not aware of, if it's regarding probate matters or even the delinquency matters. I have to get involved when there's like jury trials on neglect and abuse cases and when there's divorces. So that's my real interaction, but they should be able to track that because required yearly to report trial statistics to the
It would be
State Court
interesting.
Administrator's Office.
It would be helpful for us to know actually how many days
Sure.
court is being held. if pushing the button is such an issue, you know, maybe we can look at that half-time person to be there.
Josephine is certified to be their court recorder, so that's
Okay.
that's kind of a separate issue. I mean, she is certified to do that.
Okay.
As long as she's in the building.
Correct.
Right.
And they do look elsewhere. We've had a couple of trials come up where they have had to bring in others from outside the area. There's a whole list on the state court's website because we've had a fair amount of circuit court trials, not necessarily in our county, but in our circuit, we're 3 counties. And they've had to pull in from other areas because of vacations. But sometimes what they do with the recordings, they are sending them out to people to be transcribed when their transcript is needed, because you should have been seeing some of those bills go through.
So are you saying that the court has the option of subcontracting that work?
The court reporting, they can if they can find someone. Sometimes
Okay.
it can be difficult, because I was helping Joe a couple weeks ago for a trial. Luckily it went away. We were having a hard time. There was no one, even from our circuit, that could come help them. But you have to talk to them. I'm not sure what all their requirements are, but
Sure.
there is a list.
Well, I'm just looking at what other options do we have, you know, to fill the needs of the court and be in compliance legally. You know, what other options do we have besides, you know, a full-time employee? There is a problem up there right now, obviously, with the backlogs. The issue was raised about pushing the button. You know, what are all the solutions? We've only been offered one
Idea.
solution or one fix, you might say, and we haven't looked at what else is available to us so we can get our courts operating the way it should.
Commissioner West.
If we choose to do nothing, I think we need to have a conversation with our attorney to see what risk we're taking. To me, if we're told that we have a potential issue, we have to take some action or we're not being responsible. And I don't know what the answer is, but I think we need to consider that before we just say, well, she can push the button. I don't want us to have an issue that we haven't been responsible for.
Commissioner Susan.
That's where I was coming from. The thing that I got that was most alarming is she's very concerned that everything be handled appropriately and according to law. The backlog is a real issue. It wasn't just one case where they had a problem, it's multiple cases where they had to go back and reconstruct. Why that happened, it might be the fault of the machine, who knows? But clearly, when the judge is saying, we have a problem of this level, I think we have to really strongly consider doing something. Otherwise, are we shirking our own responsibilities here?
Well, and one thing I thought of is that if we get a camera like this, if her camera, you know, I mean, this one, I've been told that it does a very good job, and, you know, does it, and it's clear, and they hear it, they don't even have to go to the recording. And maybe we could have one of those for the court
I
that,
could be wrong, but Chuck, do you know, the district court has the cameras. I thought their
I
court.
believe they do.
I think they already have the cameras in
but
there.
do they have the digital one?
Yeah, that's what, when we were talking about the cameras, he said they already did the ones up here.
Right, in the courtroom. I think, well, don't check on that, but I think they've already got the
We
cameras.
did some
Okay.
special funding for those, I think.
Because you've got 2 issues going on. You're talking about the court reporting is one issue, but then you've also got the probate side of the backlog. So
Right.
those are kind of like two different
issues.
Okay.
that are being consolidated.
Yeah. Commissioner Redmond.
Well, and then this other sheet that she gave us, you know, about the open cases and so on. I mean, if you look back in 11, there were only 281 open cases, and now in 2018, 338 open cases. So I mean, there's quite a bit of increase, and
But see, that's my point. You have to take a 9-month, you know, case where someone isn't there, I mean, it's gonna increase tremendously if there's only one person doing two people's work.
If it gets done in a
You
timely
know,
manner,
and she came into this, you know, and so she sees this right away and sees it, and I appreciate that. And I think we need to help her fix it, but we have to look at why it happened and how it happened, not just that it is there, you know, and putting people at it, you know, pretty soon, if they get this backlog done, then do we really need 3 people there? You know, that's what I'm concerned about, is that we're creating a position that isn't necessary, you know, permanently. Commissioner Roston.
I just wanted to say I'd like to hold off on making this decision today until we get a little bit more information in regards to this, and then we can revisit this particular issue. So I would suggest we hold off.
Commissioner Redpath.
I'm good with that. I just don't know that all the problems that are created up there are because of Josephine being out for that period of time, so I could, you know.
Right. I agree with you
too.
there, we don't. And I don't know that the judge does either, because she's only been there, did this 6 months.
Right, but at
You
the
know.
end, where Judge Nelson was hiring the temporary to try to alleviate some of it, obviously he felt that pressure too.
Right.
Well, just want to make sure the temporary was the business just answered the phone and agreed with people.
Mhm.
I don't think she did any of it.
Right.
She was doing some, family court stuff and delinquencies with me, but
It was towards the very end of Josephine's. Because most of the time, they did not have a temp up there. So,
And the judge did say she would be willing to try it part-time, you know. So,
and another factor, and I may be wrong, but one factor is a different court administrator. And I think Betsy Fisher's philosophy, and how to say this correctly without Betsy Fisher's philosophy, priorities, I think, are different than Joe Vogel's. So that may have cost something. They have 2 completely different styles.
Years of experience too.
Yeah, I think that may have played a factor. I don't know for a fact, but I know Betsy Fisher had a much different philosophy and style and responsibility than Joe has, and different
It's an
background.
Energizer bunny.
So that may be a factor too. So I think it's a combination of all these issues.
The position that Judge Nelson eliminated, I can't remember what it was. It would be good to know what that was.
Well, they,
Deputy
Oh,
court
yeah, you got it.
recorder, I believe.
Okay.
Deputy probate
Am I-
register.
I'm getting permission from the clerk. So when Judge Nelson came on, Julie Orr was the probate administrator, and then you had Susan as the probate register. When Julie retired, they decided to put those 2 positions together and make a probate administrator. So you took 2 and made 1. So now what's coming before you is that sometimes in hindsight, that there really is a need for an administrator and a register.
That's what I was wondering.
I
if this
believe that's the
backlog
message.
that we're talking about is really more than
Correct.
Josephine being gone. It's because the position was
Correct.
eliminated.
And then
And
with
it's built up
the
over time.
retirement,
there
the
was a little
retirement,
difference of sharing of work.
right, so the retirement of Betsy, there was Joe Povolo, who was your juvenile, what would be his title?
He was like a juvenile,
Like a
as a probation.
Probation officer. So when Betsy retired, they eliminated Joe's position, giving him 5 more hours. So his position, so they took 2 positions and made 1. So basically you lost your 2 court administrators within an amount of time, and then promoted from within, and then, so your staff is less.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, but when we combine the 2, when Julie Orr retired, isn't that where we did the salary increase? So, we put the 2 positions together and did a salary increase.
Correct, they took Josephine's position and on the staffing level, changed it to reflect,
So who saw the increase? Would that be
Josephine.
Josephine then? So if she is not, that hasn't worked out, I'll say.
She has become the juvenile register.
So
Josephine
to
has.
become one, an increase, it hasn't worked out exactly how we thought it should have, correct? Is that a fair statement? Fair statement?
Yes.
Then that should be rolled back. What was that raised by, and what, in today's dollars, what would we roll that back to then?
Well, what I would say, and I can't answer for them, is that certain job duties changed hands. So let's say, for instance, if in the position of probate administrator right now, that it was, let's say, a portion of juvenile register and a portion of probate register. So that probate register / juvenile register then went into the probate administrator. And then so then what they did is they shifted juvenile register to Josephine, leaving most of the duties of probate to Susan. So it's kind of like taking the jobs together and trying to siphon the duties out, and then you find out, and I'm not speaking on behalf of either
Right, I
way,
understand.
that you find out, and the only reason I can say this is because I know she may take not offense, but we've realized that in my position, when I was chief staff accountant to now chief deputy clerk, that there are some things that I do that I took with me let's say without a pay raise, that it's just, that's part of my position. You know, I'm looked at as John would probably say, more of a chief financial officer, even though I'm chief deputy clerk.
Right.
So when you take and you try and shift, then it's hard to delegate or give back to a different, you know, like who do you give this to or who do you give that to? How do you separate, you know, so that's kind of like a learning curve in that sense. But again, you've taken 4 people and made them 2 people. Does that make sense? Am I saying that correctly?
It does, but we
I
have
think you
to,
should probably get more information after you hear from the other offices and maybe just reconsider.
Okay.
So we agree, we're gonna wait, we're gonna hear Dorothy Miller's presentation, and that's an option that can be discussed at that time then?
yeah. And you'll get those numbers then. Do you understand my question, though?
We'll get you the numbers and we'll make you a grid. Yes, I understood your question.
Where it would be go down to? Okay.
We'll make you a little grid because sometimes that's easier.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you.
I thought that the narrative that Susan Richards provided on page 37 kind of explained with Judge Deegan passing away, and it talked about, you know, shuffling all the responsibilities, and it explains it pretty clearly, so.
Right.
Okay.
So we'll move on to
Find that.
do we want to talk about MERS, or that's pretty well settled?
That is in the budget.
Let's
Yeah.
leave that
That's-
alone.
Then we'll leave it alone.
Yeah, everybody's good with that.
Yeah.
So, just a couple updates. It's interesting on union contracts. The unions are requested to switch unions. It doesn't impact us. We had a MERC call. It's their right. We as employer just confirmed the fact. So we are not going to start negotiations until they have their vote. The ballot issue will be September, I could be off by a couple of days, September 11th through October 10th maybe, approximately. They'll count them and they'll find out who their representatives are. And it's nothing to do with that. They internally, one of their key people that was a member of one union switched now as the rep from the other union, and so they want to go with him. So there's a legal process. So we can't start negotiation until that issue is resolved. But we normally really don't start till November anyway.
And that's just one bargaining group.
No, there's 4 of the
5?
5 unions, they're all
I'm trying to think, I'm
Switch.
sending the emails
Yes,
before I came in.
I think there's
it's 4 or 5.
4, I think 4 unions are
POM,
requesting.
CAOM.
Yes, you know, after a while I get them all confused because
COA,
some units have 3 members in them.
And the 911 people are going too, so I think it is 5.
The first thing, they want to go back to who they had, like they used the way, the 911 dispatchers, I think Melinda and Tony, you were part of that discussion. And I was shocked we were able to get a first-time contract in 1 day because the gentleman, Paul Post, was very good to work with. He switched unions. They're petitioning to go back to the union that he is currently employed with.
You can read.
So in that case, I mean, don't we normally plug in 2.5?
We don't plug anything in.
Nothing,
Even equal to what?
not in the budget.
No, we'll have a closed session discussion probably in October to talk about that.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, if we were to do that, that would be an indication
Yeah.
of our, it would actually, work against our.
Would jeopardize us.
negotiations.
On the years we negotiate, we never put anything in the budget.
I gotcha.
So it's interesting, I thought, that they're having these elections. And Michelle and I are part of, we have a conference call, we obviously stay out of it, we just certify. Our job is to give them a list of their employees and addresses and verify that they are eligible to vote. That's completely our role.
Right, and they have already sent them a notice that we'd like to negotiate. I saw that.
Yeah, but that's all put on hold because of
the vote.
because of this.
Yeah.
So anyway, I thought you should know that. It has nothing to do with any internal issues. They simply like this one gentleman. And we enjoy working with him too, so we don't have issues.
So moving along, and the only things that we really haven't discussed are the future of the 911 funding options, or is that going to be?
Well, we kind of did. I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Mhm.
I think what Jen and Michelle are saying, we can afford, at least now, keep it in the budget and not go for any special assessment or villages, right? Is that a fair
Yes,
statement?
I believe I stepped out at that point when you guys were discussing and getting on the topic of 911 funding options. So I guess if you don't mind, what are your questions regarding 911 funding?
Whether we should have a special election, either per household, per phone, or millage.
Well, if you did something like that, then you would have an additional $725,000 in your general fund to do with what you please.
Pay off the debt we already have.
Or not spend $750,000 of taxpayer money recklessly by covering it within our budget and remaining with a tight budget.
But for next year, you have the cost covered in the 2020 budget, correct?
That's correct. 725 is allocated from the general fund. 160,000 comes in from your e-wireless. And that's always been a discussion that we've talked about, where the cell phones are charged and the
It's
revenue.
actually more than we anticipated. Remember, we
150, you
anticipate
said?
about 90,000,
160.
95,000, so it's much
So that's
greater.
160 for
That's
the
great.
e-wireless to come into 911. And then the tower, DTR, I'm sorry, the capital, no, I keep saying, the tower fund. So the 518, that supports 911 with 120,000. And I have not increased that. I was tempted to in 2020, but I know that Matt has his requests. So if you choose not to go with the request until 2021, I can supplement more from the tower into 911 and decrease the general fund allocation.
And the general fund allocation is how much?
725, 115.
I thought it was only $287,000.
What is the
That's
what?
it.
The 287?
We're talking about the whole operation.
So that's different. So
Oh.
your 457 and your 357 is totally different than 911. And that's what this says, future 911 funding, right?
Okay, but I
If
do
we're
believe-
talking, go ahead.
I do believe we're talking about that contract. So we're talking about from PILT, we're talking from, that's what I thought it was.
See, that's different.
Okay.
That's a different, 911 funding options is your 232.
Okay.
Your capital radio project is different
I put that
funding.
in both. We're talking about two separate things.
All right.
You are right.
That's what I thought we were
You are
supposed to be
correct.
talking about, not about the 911 funding.
Okay.
Okay, if you look at the 10-year contract we signed,
That's the
we're in
one.
year number three.
Am I wrong? I mean, isn't that what I thought we were talking about, is the surcharge that we put on the phones to help cover this? You know, the 38,000 that is paid for things?
Okay, so
And then
that's gonna
Bill-
be under your special funds, and that's a totally different than future 911 funding options, to me. To me, you're talking about the capital radio projects, which
All right.
is a fund
That's what I think.
457.
I mean, that's what I thought we were supposed to be.
Okay, I put that as, because of the capital outlay project, we said we'd pay it for the first 2 years, we've made that commitment, that's done, we're beyond that now. Question is, are we gonna continue to pay it through PILT and everything else that we talked about, or are we gonna go for additional funding? As I remember, you, Jen, and Michelle felt comfortable, we could continue making the payments without additional surcharges, or
Okay.
fees, or millages. Is that
So did you
correct?
want to, do you have time, do you want to look at the big picture on this and have me explain this? Okay. All right, so you're going to go to your special funds in your books, and you're going to go to page 47.
That's shaking.
47 of 70?
Yes, 47 of 70.
Okay, so this is the 457 fund.
Yes. And it's called Radio Communications Project.
Okay, so I want to,
So Future Radio Communications Project funding.
that's what we're talking about.
I was like, sweet, 911 knowledge.
No, they got turned down. We didn't want to go there again.
Okay, so for your 2020 budget, I am
We talked internally many times.
I am pulling $69,000 from the fund balance forward. Prior to the amendments and transfers that were approved in August, this fund had $391,000 in it. This fund has $391,000 in it because we did front from transfers in from the DTR to assimilate and get those payments started. As you recall, we were not charged that first year that we had it. So we funded it 1 year in advance with no bills, okay? Under the contractual line item services, this is the amount of money that was projected to us was going to be $74,000. It is 10.
It's what?
10.
How was that off so far?
One of the things that we decided to do with the radio communications project is that the radio, when he went out for maintenance, it actually is going through a separate vendor than Motorola. Motorola is doing what you've approved in this line item on your spreadsheet here of the 21,000 for the modules located within the 911. So the 911 is absorbing this 21,000 of the 74, and then come back with the contractual. I believe it's through what's that Mitchell? What's that? Not Radio North. Maybe it is Radio North. Yeah, I think it is Radio North at $10,000 for the rest of that. So with that being said, you can see on the plus side, on the revenues, your radio project user maintenance fee, that is general fund. It is per radio, per department. That was something that you instituted when you decided to go with this project. So yes, the general fund supplements $43,400 for each radio that is allocated to those departments. Those departments are each sheriff's deputy, as well as the 911. So that's all within the general fund that comes over, or the user maintenance from 911. It's kind of a flow back and forth. The contributions for your local units, those are bills that are generated each September by the Leelanau County Treasurer's Office and are sent out to the local units, your townships and villages. That's projected at $30,600. Now, your transfer in from your PILT, this was the number that was given to me in 18, and I have just transferred that figure into here. I do believe that for 2020 though, after Darcy sat in with me that first meeting, that this actually is closer to 53,000 because the percentage from PILT does go up, each typically depending on that. And then, so that transfer is set for that. I believe it's going to be a little higher. And then the E-Wireless 911, you can see from the first year audited it was 22,000, and then in 2018 it was 117. So one of the hard portions with this, even though it's revenue based, is when it comes in and when it does not. Typically the larger groups will send it and they'll send amounts that come over quarterly. So typically, it may be a December quarter, but we don't get it till January, February. We do post that back. So like, for instance, on this, the 233 that I just moved, I believe I moved approximately another $68,000 into here. So you were before mid-year, or just at mid-year, you already had close to what you needed. So it is generating more than the 90. But without having a full year's history, and I don't consider 18 a true full year with that collection, I would say whatever happens here in 19 is what I would say you could budget in the future. And that is probably most likely going to come in higher than 90, just from what I'm seeing in the trends. So like I said, before the transfers that I made in August, you had 391,000. I transferred in 276. So that also transferred out. So you're about at 390, actually you're more than 391 because I moved in the E911 payments, I think, which like I said was either 68 or 52 or something, whatever we just did a couple weeks ago. So you're running over 400,000. So do I see that you're going to have a problem in the future? 2022, 2023, you might want to, we could look at it, but from what I'm seeing on the trend of how we've prepared this, if you were to eliminate your contribution from your general fund, the PILT, and then the user maintenance, yes, you'd be looking at about 95,000. That would be your cost savings if you were to find additional sources of income.
Commissioner Wesson.
Sounds to me like we ought to defer this until next year's budget discussion.
Yeah, until we know a full amount, before we start changing it, but at least I know we have it covered.
Right.
We don't have to be concerned about it.
There also is talk about, because the most you can allocate now is 42 cents, there's talk about changing that amount, the greater amount that boards can do without going for a vote. So that may be an option you have in the future also.
I don't know, I heard 63 cents or something like
They're
that.
debating on it.
Yeah.
Because it's a big issue for many counties.
Right.
Excellent.
So we're all set. Do we need have any other, things that we need to tell you, or we'll just leave that as is then?
If you like those numbers.
Yeah, we do. Those
A
are
lot.
good numbers.
Like a lot. Commissioner Answer.
I understand this discussion. What you have to look at, though, is 911 as a whole is costing us more every single year. Every year. And at some point, push will come to shove, and we're going to have to do something. It's just what I see.
Yes. Yeah.
Can't.
Do you have off the top of your head when the bond payment stops? Is it 2027, 2029?
I think it's 2028.
2028?
I'm going top of my head. You're talking about next door.
Yeah. I would say you're safe if you can get to 2028.
Or 2027.
Yeah, whenever your bond payment next door is,
Yeah.
it stops. Because I believe that budget is for something that's transferred in from the general fund to pay for that. Yeah, 444,000. And I believe it steadily either decreases or increases.
No, it's pretty much the same. There's a small increase, but it's not.
Yeah, so like this year it's 462, next year it's 444. So if you figure about 430,000 after you pay off the LEC, you will have not coming out from your general fund.
Who knows what else we'll have by then.
A roof up here. That's for sure. Commissioner Rick.
Well, again, my notes say health insurance costs, are we going to talk about that?
We don't have any information. We're just saying that you just never know what's going to happen.
Okay, and MMRMA?
I think Michelle talked about we need to put some more funds, and she's busy right now, because that's really her topic. That
Correct. We were supposed to be getting that survey soon, and we'll double check with Laurel. But our check that we always get back from them, what we're doing is to look around to keep at least 150,000 in that fund, because the way it's sitting now, with the potential that's out there, we don't want to find ourselves in the negative, because that's a zing in the audit. And we don't want to do that. We need to be prepared for at least 2 claims. The cap is 75,000 per claim.
Right.
And he said if we respond quick enough to that response, we could get that money yet this year, and that's where our goal is. December 31st is the date we're looking at to try to avoid pulling from the fund balance or anything, if we can just turn around and reinvest, because we are earning interest, and they said it's a pretty good rate. I don't recall what rate
I
they
think it's at 5%.
but we can turn it right around and put it right back into that fund, which would be the position. We used to carry probably 6, 7, 8 years ago at least, enough for 3 to 4 claims. I don't really know that we need to do that right now, but at least for 2.
So currently, what we had been doing, when this radio project did come into play, you decided at the time to go ahead and budget in the MMRMA reimbursement, where in the past we had not. So under the revenue line item, I'm budgeting 100, we got 133 in. So our retention right now is, let's say we have 30,000. So Michelle's stating you want to put probably 100 in. So what would that mean is, do you want to take 100 from your contingency, or do you want to reduce this MMRMA to 0? If it's going to be done in 19, you could keep the 100 here for 20, and it would just be a 19 adjustment.
That's what I would prefer to do.
Okay. Leave the 100 in, it'll be a 19, when we get it, it'll be a 19 adjustment. Okay. Sounds good.
Any discussion on that anymore? I think we all agree with that.
Okay. I'll leave it in.
All right, when you said the health insurance,
Well, that's just,
we'll work on
as
that.
you all know, that's just a viable option. We don't have any updates, but just, you never know how that could change.
We don't have any big claims out there as of today.
Well, health insurance is capped. I mean, we have insurance riders in place. It's not about necessarily one big claim, it's about how many big claims.
Yeah, you have some pros and you have some cons. Being self-insured, one of the lessons you have is you prefer to keep your staff. Because let's say someone's hired in January, just for giggles, you pay a stop loss for that person the whole entire time. Their claims, so the stop loss is just an event, it goes over into a pot. But each time they go to the doctor, you're paying money. So they go to the doctor, it's 180, they go here, it's 120, it's here and here and here and here. So they don't hit that 20,000 cap. Oh, I found another job, it's June. Okay, hire a new person, same thing, starts all over. New, so not that we're promoting, of course, we want everybody to stay forever. But the more it changes hands, the more expense we have. This year, for instance, we have a lot more changing of hands. People coming, people going, and it can be retirements as well. But you've got people leaving and people coming on who have used it, haven't gotten to that cap. Let's say they got to 18,000 because maybe they did have something major. Now you hire somebody in August, starts back over at 20K. Yeah, so it's a gamble, right? I'm just letting you know there's a shift here these last year and this year for sure. There's a lot of turnover. I mean, I used to, when I was chief staff accountant doing payroll only, they make a joke that on a vacation somebody would leave. That was twice a year. I might see it twice a month now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I don't know.
Is it this building or is it?
It's both sides. Some of it's been retirement or whatever, some of it's just them, they move on. It's not what they had anticipated or whichever you want to say,
It's different.
Right. So unless you hit that cap, and not that we want people to hit that cap, it helps when they hit the cap because then they go into stop loss and then that carries over. But when they don't and then they leave, and so then again, that's self-insurance. That's how this works. So it's just hitting us a little harder, I would say. I've noticed a trend, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Commissioner.
So what happens when we have an employee leave, like for the armed forces, and they get their job back, or are they considered an employee the whole time?
They're considered an employee in the sense to where we don't change the staffing level for wages and so forth. You'll actually bring somebody in on a cost savings, but you'll also have the retirement that they're entitled to, and then the other person is on a status quo through the federal law. When that person comes back, you owe them back their vacation and personal time. And you also owe them the months that they were gone for MERS. They pay in their portion, but you as the employer pay in as long as they have come back to work.
do we pay that stop loss for the health insurance then while they're gone, or do they go on a different health?
I'm not gonna say thankfully, but what I could say is, when they are in an armed forces situation like that, and I mean, we don't give out that kind of information, I guess I would say, most likely they're taking their TRICARE benefit, because it's a benefit that they can have, and then take our buyout.
I see, okay.
But
But they're still covered.
when they're covered in their own health insurance there. 100% of the time, you're bringing somebody in who's going to come in on our insurance.
Okay. Okay.
Cost of doing business.
It's a cost of doing business.
Cost of doing
exactly.
business, yep,
Absolutely.
yep, yep,
What's the
yep,
cost of,
yep.
okay.
So, future, when is our next meeting?
September 10th, which is most of the dam, we'll have Dorothy Miller here,
Okay.
So I wasn't,
and maybe Parks and Recs, depending on how much.
you have your executive session that you're going to do, and then you have a special dam after that
Well, it's just-
collaboration?
the dam is part of the budget process.
So dam is gonna be part of the budget.
After the executive.
So after the executive, you're gonna have the dam,
Yes.
4 people up here.
Well, like common.
Copa can't make it.
Yeah.
Okay. I won't be here that day. But she will.
So then, so any other dates? I don't know, we don't need to set up any other dates.
No, I
have
don't
a
think so.
tentative.
We have one, the 10th, and we have the
13?
the 13th, yeah. I mean, we have dates set up in the future. so.
Are you interested at all? Are you going to go line item by line item in here?
I don't plan on it.
Okay. So we're treating it as like a flat budget. If you guys have time to review and you have a question,
And we're
mark
managing
it.
the exceptions.
And then we'll, yeah, okay. I just want to make sure.
Was there any other
Typically, you have me
questions
go
about
department by department, so I just want to make sure.
that? All right. So that brings us to public comment. Commissioner comments. We are adjourned.
So I'll call Bob.